Hello.
Hi.
And welcome to Wheel Takes, a podcast that is normally about the Wheel of Time and sometimes also about other things, like the Hunger Games. But right now it's definitely about the Wheel of Time TV show.
Yes.
I am Allie, and I am a first-time reader of the Wheel of Time. I'm on book 10.
Yes, and I am Gus, and I have read all of the Wheel of Time, and I'm on my second time through it on book 10.
And I know you're thinking, what sets this show analysis apart from any other show analysis that I could go get? Well, first of all, it's longer.
It's probably longer. Historically, these have been really, really long.
Yes, but from what I hear, worth it. Because
Hopefully.
Gus and I are both
We hope.
in the entertainment industry. I am formerly a creative executive and now a screenwriter, most recently of Rugrats, my first episode of which will be on Paramount Plus soon.
Which she can talk about because it's the Animation Guild.
Well, yeah, I can talk about that because animation and animation writing is a different guild than the WGA. It's
Yes.
TAG, which is under IATSE.
And I am an actor, and I can't talk about that. That's irrelevant to this current conversation. Because as you may or may not know or recall, depending on when you're listening to this, as we are recording this, we are in the midst of the Writers Guild of America and SAG-AFTRA strikes. So we don't know when we are going to be able to upload these critical analyses of the show. We are waiting until we can get the guild's blessings. I assume that we put something at the beginning of this episode outlining that.
Yeah, but for those of you just finding us for the first time, essentially what we do, we welcome all of your feelings. I'm sure that you are watching the Wheel of Time right now, whether you're approaching it from, being a first-time reader. We have spoiler tags that are very clear about where you need to stop listening if you're coming to us as a first-time reader, encountering this stuff for the first time. We also welcome people who have read the books 1,000 times and are feeling feelings about the adaptation and want to understand a little bit from our perspective, having worked in the entertainment industry for a long time in various capacities, why we think they made the decisions that they made, and just kind of make it so that you can understand the process of adapting and screenwriting and acting as well.
These are pretty specifically about how the sausage is made, essentially, and why choices may have been made in converting from one medium to another.
Yeah. But that being said, these are not to tell you that your feelings, unless they are racist, homophobic, or misogynistic, those aside, are wrong.
Right.
These are just to present this is kind of why in adapting from page to screen, certain things need to become more visual, certain things need to become more overt, more covert, longer, shorter, just depending on what the issue is at hand. And we also try as best as we can to answer any questions that people reach out to us with about the industry. The industry is big and has a lot of different jobs. So
we can't answer everything.
We can't answer every question. What I can promise is I will try to reach out to people I think will know the answer and see if I can come back to you with something more solid. Also, of course, my opinions and Gus's opinions about why things might have happened and how the entertainment industry works. You talk to another entertainment industry professional.
They'll tell you something else.
This is from our perspective. This is not gospel.
This is our take on why adaptational choices may have been made.
Yes.
And to give you a general feeling of kind of how we feel towards the show, we're mostly very positive towards it. So if you are here to hear two people rant and rave about the show being, woke trash and Robert Jordan is spinning in his grave, then you will not enjoy this.
Yeah, this may not be the thing for you. I will be honest with you.
If you are open to having that opinion changed, genuinely open to it, then maybe you will.
Well, I mean, not even changed, but just the perspective of why things happen explained. You don't have to like
You don't have to like it.
You don't have to. Just, come in with an open mind.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that just as kind of a spoiler into my personality, if you're not familiar with me, I don't tend to bash the hard work of other people.
Yeah, generally speaking, we will avoid that because we have made media before, and it's really fucking
really
hard.
Fucking hard.
So we're mostly going to celebrate what has been made.
Yeah,
now,
and just look at why they did the things that they did. Whether or not we thought that they were successful is kind of not really relevant. I mean, we'll talk about our feelings about it, but yeah, I'm just a person that believes that the things you put out into the world should be as kind as possible and as positive as possible. So,
and just to be explicit about it, no, we're not being paid by Amazon. We're not under contract with Amazon. If we're really effusively positive about the show, it's just because we like it.
It's just because we like it. But yeah, and my thing too is, I also don't believe that anything is objectively bad or good.
Yes, it's all media and art have three components generally, right?
Yeah.
There's the creator of the media, there's the medium, and then there's the receiver of the media. And it's any combination of those three is going to change the ultimate product.
Yeah.
Right? The Wheel of Time that I watch, the experience that I have is going to be different from the experience that Allie has, is going to be different from the experience that you, listener, who has read the books 15 times and has a very specific idea, will have, is going to be different from my buddy Zach, who has never read the books and is kind of doesn't really have a huge amount of interest in the goings on of the show, but he wants to watch it anyway.
Yeah. So I guess my thing is I don't really care to examine whether something is good or bad because I don't think that's an objective thing. I'm here to be like, here's an intellectual exercise. We're talking about the intellectual exercise of adapting and what decisions they made that I find interesting from an intellectual perspective of like, how do we get this chonky book series into a streamlined television show?
Yes.
So yeah, so that's what we're here to talk about and like why it happened that way. Probably. We don't know in full because we're using our educated guesses. Okay, cool. All that being said, all that disclaimer aside, let's dive in, shall we?
Yes. So
but first, let me get the dog.
Yeah.
Because he's barking.
So while Allie gets the dog, let me run you through how these episodes are structured. The first thing, and the longest part by far, is going to be the spoiler-free up to the show section. So what that means is any information that is not revealed in the show, we are not going to cover. We're not going to tell you in this section, oh, and this is set up for this thing that happens later. This is definitely meant to be explicitly foreshadowing this. What might happen in this section is if there is a portion of the episode that is adapted from a scene that is in book 3 that happens chronologically later than in the books, than the rest of the episode, we might discuss that because that has been covered by the show. But we're going to do our darndest to avoid talking about anything that is not right in the show. We may also, the dog has a squeaky toy, you may hear that. We have a dog. His name is Petey, and he hangs out in the studio with us when we record. So you are all very welcome for the dog sounds. I've been told to stop apologizing for the dog sounds, so there you go. We may also touch on certain changes. That is to say, this was not like this in the show. This is different. This is a plot line that appears to be new. We also might not, because we don't want to give anybody who has not read the books but has seen the show too many preconceived notions about, oh, therefore this doesn't matter because it's not in the books. We don't know what does or does not matter.
That's the fun part.
Yeah, honestly, to take a quick side sojourn thing, as somebody who's read these books and knows them pretty well, I am continuously surprised by the show, and it makes me feel as though I am experiencing the story for the first time. Mm-hmm. In a lot of ways. Even though I know the arc of the story, the plot of these episodes is markedly different. And yes, you can have the same story, but a different plot. In much the same way that, for instance, Lord of the Rings and Star Wars are in a lot of ways the same story, right, Allie?
Yes.
They are very different in their plotting and characters and everything else. And that is not to say that I think that the books and the show are as different as Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. The second section, which will happen after you hear this siren.
It's a spoiler, babies. Spoiler, 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 spoiler.
Is spoilers up through what Allie's read. Right now, That's Crossroads of Twilight. Well, like chapter 9, I want to say, Al?
Yeah.
About chapter 9, although, frankly, it's unlikely we're going to talk about Crossroads of Twilight at all. So...
What?
Through let's just say through the end of Winter's Heart, give or take. We'll have specifics when we get there. We will delineate it. There will be a chapter marker. There will be a timestamp. If you have not read the books, you should leave at that point. And then the third section, and that is going to be by far the shortest section, almost every time, is full book spoilers, where I may or may not actually have a third section, where our good buddy Bree, who is half of the author duo Kit Rocha, joins me and discusses some things that Allie doesn't know yet that happen in the books that are being foreshadowed in the show.
One day I, too, will be part of that discussion.
Last season, we had significantly more to discuss in those sections because Allie was on book 6, chapter, 5? And she has since read, books 6, 7, 8, and 9. So she's got a lot more context. A lot of the major events that were being foreshadowed in book 1 have since happened. So, yeah, a little different. So.
I just got a text from my non-reader friend.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. Oh, we may or may not discuss also things that happen in episodes 1, 2, and 3.
We're going to try not to. We're going to try really hard to keep this to season 2, episode 1.
Okay, well, quick. Not even spoiler, but just emotional reaction to something. My friend Nathan, so skip ahead a little bit if you're worried about that. But my friend Nathan just texted me, y'all, that WoT episode 3 was a fucking emotional roller coaster.
Yes, everybody. So we look forward to hearing about that in 15 or so hours of podcast, depending. I don't know. Do you think these will be, they know already. They can see the timestamps. Do you think these will be shorter than our season 1? Okay.
No, not based on my notes. There's so much more to unpack.
There is a lot.
Though I do think it might be shorter in that I won't feel the need to explain in as much detail the screenwriting terms. Because this is giving me so much life. I am seeing so much critical, well, not that there wasn't critical analysis before, but just the proliferation of certain terms and, certain knowledge that I'm not going to say that was me, but I've just noticed it in the community a little bit more this time around, this feeling of oh, I see why they did this. It goes back to X, Y, or Z, or people messaging me or even some of our content creator friends this is the A plot, this is the B plot, things like that, where I just go...
Terminology that we established last season's analyses,
just made me happy.
We will probably be less explicit in redefining.
Yeah, I mean, we still will a little bit, but not to the... extent. So I think that part will be shorter, and the explanation.
It's also worth noting, if you are joining us for the first time, we're going to be examining these episodes from a fairly boilerplate structural standpoint as our framework. We're going to be using terms like A plot, B plot, C plot. We're going to be looking at an 8-episode season structure as what it is in the textbook, as it were. That, again, as we've said before, that is not to say that all pieces of media, as we're going to examine today in episode 1, must strictly follow these rules, or they're bad. That's not what we're saying. We are using this as a basis point to jump off of, because as Shakespearean actors like to say, you have to know the rules before you can decide when you're going to break them.
Yeah, it's super important.
So
cool. Let's talk about the rules.
So we're doing episode 1. Right? Just for now.
Just episode 1.
Can I ask you a question before we get started?
Yes, of course.
First, initial reactions to season 2 versus season 1.
I really loved season 1.
Yeah, me too.
Let me put that out there. This season, already 3 episodes in, blowing it out of the water.
I think it's a lot. And I loved season 1, and this isn't a knock on season 1.
No.
It's really strong.
It's really strong.
Season 2 is really strong so far.
Really, really strong. And I think it's because they have the luxury of taking a little more time.
Yeah.
Not just in the we have longer episodes. We've cut the intro for time, which we can get into. I loved the intro. I agree with the decision if it means that we get longer episodes. But I think, we're still really following within that 60-minute structure. We're just letting a couple character moments breathe a little bit longer. And I think we desperately needed that. I think season 1 was very plot heavy, not in a bad way, but I think in order for us to like really connect with these characters, those character moments are really helpful. Like I was talking to a first time watcher friend of mine who said, I just feel so much more in it. And I feel so much more like interested in the characters than they liked season 1, but they were like, I just feel like I get them now. And I think part of that is just like, we have the luxury of that time plot wise also. We're not running away from fades right now. You know what I mean? We have this time to really do some setup. And what's nice in season 2 is you have a fan base already. So you're not trying to suck people in as much anymore.
There's a little bit less of that. Go, 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 go.
You're trying to kind of like expand what you already have.
Yes.
So you have that breathing room and time that you don't have in season 1. Setup with season 1 is always the hardest thing to do. And so season 2 is always, in my mind, a lot of the time, a better season. I think there's so many reasons why, like, you'll hear of shows that don't quite stick the landing on their first season. I think Parks and Recreation is a pretty famous example of that people refer back to, whether or not you agree with that.
Always Sunny.
There's a lot of people that say like Always Sunny, Parks and Recreation, those shows didn't quite stick the landing their first season and still had to kind of like figure out the bones. And I think that tends the comfortability of like, this is what the show is and this is who we are and why we're here tends to make for a better season 2. That being said, let's talk about.
Well, I think there is more to talk about within that though, if you don't mind.
We're going
No, within runtime and because last season we talked a lot about how if you push over 60 minutes, it's you're going to feel it.
You do feel it.
And we do feel it.
Yeah.
And I do think we've now pushed it about as far as we realistically can.
Yeah.
With about 7 extra minutes.
I think it's a good amount. I do. Because there's such a thing as letting too much air in to your show. It's a really delicate balance because we as a culture have become used to 30 or 60 minute episodes.
Yes.
And when you screw with that formula too much, it tends to actually be antithetical to the success of the thing. So like, for instance, it's interesting. I have a learning disability, right? I was given extended time on my tests.
Yes.
And all these people would be like, oh gosh, that's not fair. Like I should get extended time on my tests. Well, the studies show that that's actually antithetical to kids doing well on their tests if they are neurotypical.
Sure.
So like, it's not an advantage. It's creating equity in the classroom.
Sure.
So like, that's an example. So when you're like, oh, I wish we had 4-hour episodes or whatever it is, a lot of the time, what's then happening is if you're creating longer and longer episodes, what you're really doing is kind of creating a film. And then you're just creating a series of films.
Which can work, but it's a different thing.
But it doesn't tend to be my favorite thing.
Sure.
Because I think that there's a reason why the formula exists. And when you screw with that formula too much, I think you start to make people like weirdly mad. Like I think our brains start to get mad when the patterns that we are used to get broken too much.
Yeah.
Like we're just like, we've been telling stories the same way since time immemorial. Why are we screwing with that now?
Yeah, which again isn't to say it can't work.
And I made that point last season, and then I had somebody message me and go, I didn't really like latch on to that as a concept until I saw a show break that formula, and I kept thinking, God, how long is this?
Yes.
Yeah. So, big thing. We have our big thematic dichotomy that's coming back into play, right? What is good? What is evil? When we talk about a thematic dichotomy, Gus, what am I talking about?
A thematic dichotomy is two opposing or non-complementary perspectives or topics or modes of being that are kind of locked in an eternal struggle that the show is examining as its thesis.
Right. And the protagonist is stuck between those two poles, right? And neither side can really fully win. So when we talk about good versus evil, as an example, and this is what
classic dichotomy
creates the longevity of the show. We want a show that's going to last multiple seasons, unless you're writing a miniseries, and that's like a whole other fucking can of worms. But ideally, with a show like The Wheel of Time, we want a show that's ongoing and continuous, especially because shows don't make money until at least season 2.
Right.
For the most part. So when we're talking about thematic dichotomy and we're saying good versus evil, Rand and his friends, by extension, as sort of mini protagonists, right?
They're all protagonists.
I would argue
say.
they're all protagonists, but I would say Rand is kind of the the dragon, right? So he's the person we would think of as the protagonist. But they're stuck in the middle between good versus evil. Now, wouldn't evil be something you would naturally go away from and go to the good side? I mean, theoretically, right? If we have these mustache twirling, ridiculous villains who are like eating babies in front of us, right?
Yeah.
But that's not what the show is doing. And that ultimately also is not Robert Jordan's thesis. Is that like, oh, you should just be good?
That evil is easy to oppose and simple to notice?
Right.
Yeah.
It's really an examination of like the layers and levels of what good is and what evil is.
And balance, right?
And when you think of what that is, it's like we're also presenting two camps, right? The characters that populate this world all have to fall somewhere along the spectrum and are pulling the protagonists in different directions. So when you're talking about evil, obviously on one end we have a Shamael, right?
Right. Who we now can say is a Shamael.
Is the Shamael.
Because the show has made that explicit now.
And of course the dark one. Obviously not appealing, but a Shamael has some pretty good points, right? About, I mean, they've got childcare.
The first scene of the season is a Shamael effectively delivering a monologue about how evil isn't that simple.
Exactly.
Right?
And that is the
to a
fucking
child.
Thesis of the show, right? And like, what is a monster? What does a monster look like? Can we really know? It's just based on our own implicit biases, right? And then on the good side, it's not all sunshine and roses over there. We've got white cloaks who think they're the good guys.
Mm-hmm.
Do we agree?
I
guess
don't
it depends
really.
On your perspective, right? So we have the protagonists in the middle of these dueling opposing parties, and where do they fall? They have to fall in the middle somewhere, but are constantly pulled in different directions because that creates consistent and lasting conflict. And conflict in shows is king/queen/ non-binary ruler.
Now, Allie, in the past, we have discussed episodes as part of an 8-episode structure, and you have mentioned that seasons, because this show is intended to be 8 seasons, follow a very similar kind of macrocosm form of that 8-episode structure.
Right.
Can you remind us for this is season 2, episode 1, what is season 2, and then also what is episode 1? Sure.
As a quick explanation, every episode of a TV show has its own arc, right? You saw it when you first were in school. It's a little more complicated when you dive into it a little bit deeper, but you've got, the inciting incident, which is the why we're here, what's causing us to start out why today, the climax, which is the big moment of answering the question of like, will they accomplish their goal or not? And the resolution, which is we are finished with that. And then of course with TV, and we'll talk about this a little bit further, a hook that leads us to the next episode. So that you want to keep watching, especially with this binge model that we've created. So there's that. Then there is a larger arc within that whole thing that is the season arc, right? And that also has the same beats that an episode would have just over a longer period of time, right? Each episode encompasses a beat of that season. Then you have the series. Each season encompasses one of those beats that make up the larger season arc of the entire show.
The series arc. You said season arc.
Series arc. Sorry. Yeah. So in terms of the season to, kind of what we can expect, this is the obstacle season. So we're going to start to see increased obstacles, more and more baddies. The baddies are going to be leveling up. Our characters will also be leveling up in response to those obstacles. They're going to be learning new things about their world and their environment. Things are going to be more difficult than they initially thought. And then we're also going to have a point of no return. This is going to be the, crap, we can't go back.
I have some advanced theories based on the books of what those will be. But
we'll talk about
them
that
later.
in the spoiler section, but I'm like very certain I know exactly what the point of no return is going to be. Cool. So in addition to that, we're also going to have a season question.
Yeah. So just to loop back on obstacles.
Yeah.
This is essentially, this is harder than we thought.
This is the, this was harder than we thought season.
Great.
Right. So I think that's why we're getting introductions to, I can't say who the baddies are that we're getting introduced to yet, but know that there's a reason why we were fighting 3 fades instead of 1 this episode, right? We're leveling up.
It's more dangerous.
It's more dangerous. It's more threatening. We are growing up, and we got to grow up fast. So in the terms of the season question, this is kind of like the plot question of the season that's going to keep us watching from episode to episode. So last season, it was who is the Dragon Reborn, right? That's got to be a really strong season question to suck those new fans in. This season, I think it's going to be a little bit lighter as a season question.
Sure.
I think it's going to be a little bit lighter because we have so many different moving pieces that in order to unite all of them together under one banner question, it's a little complicated.
That is certainly true. The party has been split.
Yes. So my season question is, can these kids stay safe long enough to learn to control or master their abilities, to deal with the battles to come, and find their way back to one another? I think that's the most important thing is, are they going to find their way back to one another?
Can we get the gang back together?
Will the gang get back together? And I think that's that the stakes of that is highlighted in Perrin's letter, which we'll talk about, where he says, I feel like alone we are more vulnerable. The world is more dangerous. Obstacles. I'm just going to point it out every time we see more obstacles. That we feel exposed when we're not all together, which means we're in danger. When we're not all together, we need to come back together so that we're safe. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
Cool.
And we see a lot of people, not all of them, but many of our friends in danger this episode.
Yes.
So without being too specific, we'll get into specifics later, Allie. Without being too specific, are the obstacles usually overcome in the obstacles season? Some of them or all of them?
I mean, yes and no.
Sure.
I mean, I think it depends. A lot of the time, no.
Sure.
Because here's the thing. With TV, you need to oscillate between hope and fear, right? If there's too much hope, right? If too many obstacles are defeated, we kind of run out of steam. The stakes are too low. We get bored.
Sure.
If there's too much fear and no obstacles get overcome, then at this point, it's depressing. We're like, there's no way that this protagonist could actually win, so we lose interest.
Sure.
Because it's boring to watch people suffer with no skills.
That is true.
No one wants to see hot people doing well. And no one wants, that's something a mentor of mine said. They're like, no one wants to see hot people doing well.
That's funny.
So too much hope, get rid of it. But also no one wants to see depressing McGee.
So when we think of the obstacles that are before us, that have been set out before us at the end of last season, we've got powerless Moiraine.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's probably something that will be overcome just because I think that people want to see magic on the show.
Sure.
I think from a producer perspective, Rosamund Pike even talked in the X-Ray about missing doing magic. I think there's just no way we have the magic lady we have Gandalf for 6 seasons not channel.
Sure, that would be rough.
I just don't think that's possible.
We've got the band is not together. There's a diaspora.
That to me is probably going to be resolved in some way. I think they will come back together. I think it will likely be temporary because from a screenwriting perspective, it's just very hard to have that many people in one space and create compelling conflict.
And none of this is based on what does or doesn't happen in the books because again, they're playing fast and loose with specific pacing, which works for me.
Right. Well, it also comes from knowing that next season is the story turn season.
Yeah.
Which is basically the ramp up to the midpoint, which is the mini climax in the middle of everything. So it's the point at which everything kind of shakes up.
Sure.
So all the stuff we thought we knew and the gains we thought we were making, all that gets shaken up because new plans get introduced.
We've got Rand lost and Matt in captivity.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're already seeing with Matt that he's looking for a way out of that problem.
Mm-hmm.
Rand, we're not really sure what's going on with Rand at this point, so we can put him kind of on ice.
Yeah.
For now.
Just put him in the box, put him on the shelf.
I mean, I think there's a reason why I did see some complaints about Rand not showing up until the middle of the episode.
Really, the end. I mean, we timed this about 8 minutes from the end.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
We'll get into it. But it has to do with the question of the episode,
Yes.
which I think I can get into now, right?
Oh, do you mind if I one more obstacle?
Oh, please.
There were these weird fuckers on boats at the end of episode 8 that seemed to be there to presage something bad.
Yeah, I mean,
Frankly, if you tidal wave a city and a small girl, and they were not aiming the tidal wave at the small girl specifically.
Oh my gosh, I cannot see
that was
another
off
critique
discussed.
about that. I was like, they're clearly aiming for the city. She just happened to be on the beach.
And also
They probably
just
couldn't
wiping
see
out
her from that
wiping out
distance.
the beach, but you know.
Anyway, but so my big thing was with that, I think that the reason why they were the hook of the episode, right, is because that is going to propel us into the obstacle season. We have introduced a tiny glimpse at what that new obstacle could be.
It's
One
bad.
of the new obstacles, right?
Whatever it is,
Obviously,
seems bad.
Ishamael is also another
A big one.
big obstacle.
As the trailers told us, we set his strongest lieutenant free
Lieutenant, as they say in the
because she's
UK.
very British.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can jump in, if you're ready to jump into the question of episode 1.
Yes.
We can do that right after these ads. Welcome back. We ate dinner
Dinner time.
because these are long.
So, also, I'm texting with a friend who is also another first-time watcher who is obsessed with Ishi. Anyway, Perez really has crushed it.
Yeah. Pay your actors and your writers.
Pay your actors and your writers. Holy shit. Why is that hard? Anyway, so the plot question of the episode, right? The thing that's going to be keeping us watching is very simply, I went back and forth with you about this on a walk.
Yes, we talked about this extensively, and this is why we say that this is a great episode for us to look at in terms of formula, not formulaic, is because it's difficult for us to really distill this down.
Well, yeah. I mean, there are so many moving parts now to these episodes, but they still manage to keep those arcs
Yes.
present throughout, and they don't forget about anybody or like let anything drop, which I think makes this even more impressive. But the plot question I think we determined was, where is everyone?
Where are we? Where is
Because
everybody?
If you think about it, the where is everyone question for Rand and Matt is obvious.
Where are they? Literally,
Where are they? We start the episode with Ishamael being like, where is Rand? Boom. Usually with a plot question, it's asked pretty quickly.
Yeah, and
right?
a plot question, by the way, needs to be answerable within the bounds of the episode, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. At least in some way. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be like definitive yes or no, but it has to be like,
There's progress made.
here's progress moving forward. Otherwise we get mad. We
Yes.
don't know why we get mad, but we do. And then everyone floods to
We
Twitter
go, "Why are
talking
we
about
here?
how bad
What's
that
going on?"
episode was. Right? So where is everyone? So we got Perrin hunting for Pat and Fane in the Horn. Where is everyone?
Where's Pat and Fane?
Where's Pat and Fane? We've got the Fates with Moraine.
Yes.
And not only that, but with, it's clear that she's hunting somebody in this episode, right? She's looking for some information,
Trying to get more detail.
but she's not being very clear about it.
I think this also extends metaphorically out to like where are we now? Where do we
Right.
stand?
Right.
We've got Nynaeve and Egwene in the tower. Like, well, fucking what now? We're here. We've done the thing, and now we're stuck. Where are we now?
Right. But I mean, in that plot line, in that plot line, even more, the where is Matt
Where's
question
Matt?
is pretty
Where's Rand?
prevalent, right?
Where Moiraine and Lan? Where do we stand with one another?
Which is why we don't see Matt or Rand until pretty late in the episode, because the climax is when those questions get answered, right? And we have definitive answers for all of these things by the end.
Yeah, pretty much.
By the climax, and in the climax, we have the very definitive, okay, we understand, we have answered the question. The answer is, we know where all of them are.
We don't know where Pat and Fane is, but
Yeah, we do. He's present in the Dark Friend Social at the beginning.
yeah, okay, sure. But yeah, all right,
So we know he's around. We've had a check-in.
sure.
Yeah. And A Taste from Solitude is, as a title is kind of a hint of the need for them to come back together. They're alone. They're starting off in this stasis of being alone and will need to come back together because alone, as Perrin says, they're vulnerable.
Yes.
Trouble is, we don't know where they are. So how can we come back together if we don't know where they are? So the A plot. That's going to be the plot, typically, that takes up the most screen time. It's also usually going to be the plot forwarding plot, right?
How can a plot not be plot forwarding, Allie?
When it's more emotional.
Ah.
Yeah, more character driven than, plotty. I mean, that's not to say that the other plots can't be plotty. It's just that this is the plottiest plot.
We went back and forth on A plot, B plot.
Yeah, this one was hard.
C plot was pretty clear. There's
C-plot
usually
was
3.
very clear.
Sometimes there's the secret D plot.
Sometimes there's even,
And
we'll get to in other episodes, a secret E plot.
The dreaded E plot?
I wouldn't call it dreaded. I would only say it would be dreaded as a writer, because it's like that's a lot to fucking juggle. But I would say usually people stick to ABC.
I mean, you could even argue there was a D plot in this because we got a 10-second shot of Rand.
Which I did at one point kind of argue. And then I was like, nah, it's more of a cameo.
Yeah.
It's more of like a hit, there he is. And then we go away.
Which, by the way, is, in my opinion, felt like a fun nod to one of the early books in the series that Rand is almost entirely absent from.
Yeah, I did think that was fun.
Yeah.
So the A plot I decided, and you decided with me, was Moraine and Lan.
We timed it. It doesn't always come down to which one has more screen time. It often leans that way. But
they both felt very emotional. Both the A and the B plot felt very emotional and very plot forwardy at the same time.
Yeah.
So it was hard to pick. So when it came down to brass tacks, there were 2 things that made me decide this was the A plot. One, it's the first thing we see.
Yes. That's often a good indicator as well.
Often a really good indicator.
Not counting the cold open. Which, by the
cold
way, without giving it away, all 3 episodes, yes, they have all had cold opens. Yes, there is a different definition from cold open from what you might expect.
Oh, yeah. I did see people going, there's no cold opens anymore. There are no flashback cold opens anymore. But a cold open is anything that happens before the opening credits.
It is that simple.
Yeah, because we open coldly.
Which is sort of a hangover from TV time when, you'd be watching network television that is airing and your show would end and there might be a commercial and then the credits would start rolling and you would be getting up and you'd be putting your chips and salsa away. And then the opening titles to the next show would start playing, at which point you would go, I don't care, and you would turn it off. Whereas instead, if suddenly the Dark Friend Social started playing,
you might care.
You might go, what the fuck is this? So it's a cold open because it's before the credits. Cold apparently goes back to when they would shoot them on sound stages with very little effects or crew, I guess. I was reading about this on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
But it's anything that happens before the title sequence. And even though we got rid of most of the title sequence for this season, there's still the Ouroboros and it still says Wheel of Time.
Yeah. Which we'll take as the title sequence.
Yeah. So the A plot, sorry. The A plot by 2 minutes
Lan and
Moraine.
Yes. And it's also the first thing we see. So those are the 2 points in its favor, but you could make an argument for both the A and B plots being the A plot. We went with Lan and Moraine because it felt more correct.
Which, again, is I love that this happened on the first episode of the second season, because this gives us a great thing to point to go, the rules are not always specifically set in stone.
Right.
Right?
We have some wiggle room. Sometimes we have to really break it down. It's kind of my favorite thing when people will message me trying to guess what the A plot is of a certain episode.
It's so fun.
It's really my favorite thing. And I'm like, oh, they're doing the thing. And even if you're wrong, it's okay. This is again, not set in stone. These are our opinions.
Yeah.
B plot.
The writers may not even be thinking with these specific terms.
Yeah.
They may be, but they might not be.
They're probably in the back of their minds.
Yeah. This is just kind of since Aristotle, oftentimes stories will go this way.
Yeah. B plot, that's usually the more emotionally driven plot. Very character momenty. By the way, sometimes also A plot and B plot, it can be the same characters. There's just different things happening. That can also be a thing. But so B plot is Nynaeve, Egwene, Leandrin, and little parentheticals, and Matt.
The Tower.
Yeah, the Tower group. C plot is Perrin and the Hunt for the Horn. The C plot is usually kind of like a runner. It's not necessarily something plot forwarding.
What's a runner, Allie?
I was just about to say.
Okay, sorry. I don't know. You kept talking.
I said it's kind of like a runner where if you look at it from a comedy perspective, it's usually going to be a running gag, right? Something, that's not necessarily plot forwarding, not necessarily super emotional. It's a third check-in that occasionally will happen with a different subplot.
Sure.
And then you have D plot. I determined there was no D plot this episode because I decided Bran didn't count. It's not enough.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it was not enough. It was
well,
not
we just
enough.
got he's okay.
Yeah.
And he has a lantern and he still wants to feel connected.
Something I thought was really clever, continuing to talk about the lantern, is the connecting thread, because something that you want to do a lot of the time is somehow weave these plots together, right? That's why we have the plot question. It's like the thing that's kind of weave these plots together and have like kind of a touch base for everything, so it doesn't feel like a bunch of random moving parts that don't interact. So, you know, the where are they of it all, but also Beltane serves as a connecting thread.
Yes, I loved that.
Loved that choice.
When I was doing my time breakdown, I have, you know, scene 1 is this character, scene 2 is this character, scene 3 is this character, and then the end just says Beltane is like 3 minutes long. Because it's all of them. It's great. Well, maybe not Moraine, but it's all the Two Rivers kids. Yeah,
and it's kind of montage-esque. It's a little too long scene-wise to be a montage, but like, you know, it's montage-esque. So yeah, we've got Beltane as a connecting thread. Freaking loved that decision because it just made everything feel a little tighter in terms of connecting threads, connecting tissue, which is just important for us to feel like there's a point to all of these different components being mushed together.
Some people also asked, how is it possible that it's been a full year since season 1? I don't know. I honestly don't really care. I know it's been 6 months. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of the calendar just because that doesn't
it's been 6 months, but then there was also a month or two in between them going from Karini's death to the White Tower, right?
Yeah, there were times. It's
we can assume that there were like big swaths of time. Plus, it's been 6 months since they got to the tower. That doesn't necessarily like the travel time would have also been a thing.
Sure. The long and the short of it is when we get to what I'm going to call cinema sins, like specifics, usually the answer is going to be, I don't really care. It worked for me.
Yeah, it worked for me.
And if it didn't for you, I'm sorry. That's okay.
Especially when it comes to when they're all separate, because the last time they were all really, really together was Beltane.
Yes.
So it being the 1 year anniversary of when they were all separated has just so much emotional impact that I was like, I don't care about the practicalities, because really, to me, the emotions of it were more important than the nitty gritty. All right, Rafe, I want a timeline.
Yeah, which isn't to say you can't have fun constructing that timeline. You can. I just don't know where, whatever.
I'm just, Brandon Sanderson has this thing where he says, err on the side of awesome.
Yes.
I'm going on err on the side of awesome for this.
Yes.
Brandon
Sanderson,
it bothered you.
Famously, also, when he started writing the last few Wheel of Time books, the person who was keeping the chronological calendar, the fan calendar, gave up. Because it's impossible to keep track of when things are, and that's okay.
Because I'm gonna be honest, calendars suck. No one, you know what? If you have a shitty story but a great calendar, no one fucking cares.
Couple people might. Most people don't.
Yeah, but how many times have you talked to a friend about a book and gone, God, the calendar of it all, really well done.
Anyway.
So, all right, that brings us to almost an hour in, the Dark Friends Social Cold Open.
Yep.
This is an opportunity to introduce one of our new obstacles, the Forsaken, particularly a Shamael, and that this enemy is organized. Oof, so important. When crafting a compelling enemy, we always want to see their strengths. They have to be what we call professionally bad in order for us to buy that they are a palpable threat. Mustache twirling incompetence is not a compelling villain. It just isn't.
Not usually.
Unless it's a comedy.
Unless it's a comedy, or if it's like a swashbuckler film if it's a Ray Harryhausen movie, I'm okay with a monster like that. I'm not going to be intrigued by them as much, right?
Okay, here's the thing though. That's a movie.
True.
It's a 2-hour thing.
True. We're
talking about longevity here.
We're
talking about something that's going to have to sustain multiple seasons of television that is compelling.
Yes.
In a TV show, we have to think about, like, will this be interesting for 3 years?
That's true. That is a different thing.
Different thing entirely, as opposed to 2 hours. So yeah, the little girl is an opportunity to showcase the indoctrination that goes on that makes us understand why someone would join the bad side so as to humanize them. Mm-hmm. Thus, going back into our good versus evil. perhaps the evil isn't actually that evil. Perhaps they are humans. Perhaps they are humans making choices.
Now, we may or may not get definitive answers one way or the other later on.
Right.
But this guy who calls himself the father of lies is certainly making a lot of compelling arguments.
Well, and Dana last season made a lot of compelling arguments as well.
She did.
About how she watches people just continuously suffer all the time.
But
and maybe there's an end to that.
You'll remember we also have the I forget exactly what the term is for it, but Dana effectively betrayed her own ideology because her whole thing was about the good of the many, and then she is so proud of herself for being the one who called the fade.
Well, yeah,
right?
Because at the end of the day, right, the evil's logic still has to be a little flawed.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're like, sign me up for the dark friends.
Yeah.
They've got free daycare.
More than a few pieces of media I've watched where I went like, oh, they had to really kind of stuff something in there at the end that's like, but also they want to nuke you.
Yeah.
Now they because you can't like them too much.
Like they support working mothers. Sign me up. I think I tweeted out, why do the dark friends have better child care than the US? And I think I got a lot of how
That's
dare
quite
you
funny.
for that. Was I wrong? Did I stutter? So it showcases though why the dark friends are effective to people like Dana, who doesn't seem like an idiot, right?
Yes. It also serves to show us that there are probably more dark friends than we thought. Right?
And,
is that where you're going next?
They might look different than we thought.
They might look different from how we thought they would look.
So by extension, it makes them even scarier. They could be anyone, even people we as a society hold as the most precious. Mothers and children, especially little girls.
Mm-hmm.
Also, did we see that this scene takes place in the dream world?
Yes. So if you paused and looked at the X-ray, which is why this isn't a spoiler, the location is listed as Taliran Riyadh, which if you click on that, it describes as a world of dreams. Not necessarily a world that is your dream, but a world that exists of dreams. When you dream, you can touch it, you can enter it, and what happens to you there happens to you in real life, according to the X-ray.
Yeah.
A dangerous world of dreams.
So the first question that we get presented is Shamael essentially asking where Rand is and where he might be hiding. They also talk about whether they can turn him.
Yeah.
I watched with the subtitles on because I always do. And they talk about whether they can turn him to their side. Again, we're showcasing Rand is in the middle and both sides are going to be fighting to keep him.
He's the football.
He's the football. We see when the little girl crawls under the table, we see a Tinker mother and daughter, of course, a White Cloak, a Shinaran who theoretically in this episode eventually dies.
Could very well be, yeah. Probably. That's a reasonable takeaway.
It's what we are led to assume based on the focus on the
the
bird on his outfit and
Yeah.
then the bird on his outfit when he's dead.
Yeah.
At least one person in armor, Padden Fane, of course.
Yes. Somebody who looks like they're wearing White Cloak armor.
I said that.
Oh, I thought there was a different armored person.
No. A person with an Aes Sedai ring, but the ring appears to be black.
It's black, yes. The jewel is not colored per a colorful Aja. It is black.
Interesting. Someone with wildly long nails.
Extraordinarily distinct, lengthy nails.
Yeah, seems wildly impractical, but go off. A little person.
Mm-hmm. Or a child, but I think a little person.
Or a child. Yeah, but it seems like the children were under the table.
Yes.
So either a very mature child or a little person. A woman in red who appears to be upper class. Because that outfit looked silk as fuck.
Silk gown.
Yeah. I was like, no one's walking around in the mud wearing that. Someone with white gloves and someone with black gloves. I think this is important to pay attention to because...
And cuffs. The black glove guy had really nice cuffs.
Yeah.
I remember that.
I think
guy or woman, I don't know.
I think it's important to pay attention to because in the X-ray, one of the executive producers said these could be new enemies or enemies people we've already encountered. So might be important to just keep an eye out for some of these markers and see if maybe we might be able to deduce who some of these other people are. That would be really fun. Cold open's about the standard length of a cold open. We have the opening sequence, as we've talked about, getting cut for time. And then...
I do miss it.
I miss it, but I also understand the cut. Like, if something's got to go from this episode, it's the opening sequence.
I love the opening titles. I think because we got a lot of a buzz online, I think we need to address it a little bit. Removing them, while I miss them and love them very much, it does keep the flow going directly from the cold open into the episode. And it lets us hold on to that a little more strongly. I think a lot of people also now just hit skip intro by default. I never did on Wheel of Time. But I would, get up, make popcorn, go to the bathroom, take the time to pause. Whereas I am no longer really doing that during the spinning Ouroboros. So maybe they'll bring it back. I would be happy either way. I understand why it's gone.
So we go to Moraine taking her bath. So baths were kind of like a luxury item that Moraine really appreciated in season 1. We had her at least twice mention or be in a bath.
Yes.
I think it was actually 3 times.
I can think of 2 off the top of my head. 2 times she took a bath. 1 time in episode 1, and then 1 when she got to the tower.
There's 2 times she took a bath, but 1 time I believe she mentioned taking a bath.
That sounds
as
right.
a luxury that she enjoys.
Yes.
And she's in clothes that are literally devoid of her characteristic blue and pretty much any color at all.
I hadn't noticed that. That's a great point.
She blends into with her background now.
That's a great point.
Mm-hmm. She's been sapped of color and by extension her identity. The labor she now has to endure is super important, right? To get that one shot at luxury that she has. It's a callback to how she could easily make the bath in season 1 warmer, and a preemptive show of what will be a discussion about Moraine's strength in losing access to her powers, which is going to be like, what are her strengths now?
Mm-hmm.
Which is going to be important for understanding the stakes of why keeping those powers are important and why it's devastating and maddening for people like Logain from last season to lose them.
Yes.
She also, during this time that she usually spends in luxury, has to also wash her clothes at the same time.
Yes.
I think that's super important. It's likely to save
utilitarian
on all of the work she has to do. Yes, exactly. To do both activities now. So something she once luxuriated in has become a chore, further emphasizing what she's lost. The shot in which she puts her hand in the water is identical to the one in the pilot episode of last season, showcasing her loss further. The garment she scrubs is also blue.
Oh.
So she's laboring to bring that color back that has been stolen from her.
Oh, that's really good.
As someone that is in a body that is frequently unwell, this scene really spoke to me.
I like that. I hadn't noticed the clothing.
I have watched this episode like 5 times.
Yeah.
Like I'm at a point where I'm like watching what colors they're wearing. I'm watching what the patterns are. I'm watching like, are they in a corner? That's important. Are they under like an oppressive archway? Like it's a lot. All right, then we move to Lan doing his sword practice, but not nearly, importantly, with the same gusto as he had in the previous season with Stepin.
Yes, he seems distracted. He seems
devastated.
He seems very upset.
He's like near tears.
He can't focus. Yeah.
He's lost a connection he values, and that loss also results in the mental loss of some of his ability, I think.
I think that's very possible. There is, and this is a book parallel we can mention. It's not explicitly been stated, but it's relevant. In the books, warders get bonus stamina, bonus awareness, a little extra juice, a little extra strength from the bond. It's possible that's missing. It's possible he's just despondent.
I think regardless, when you saw the connection that those two had in that initial Beltane battle, when that battle, when you saw those two together, they were like flowing together.
It's a dance.
They even specifically, Rosamund and Daniel choreographed it so that like when he was moving, she was moving, they could do things in tandem.
Yeah.
And then you compare that to the kind of discombobulated fight at the end of this episode where people were like, Lan's supposed to be this great swordsman. What the heck? What happened?
I have things to say about that in the spoiler section.
I do have
because without giving too much away, fades don't fuck around.
Well, fades don't fuck around. I think that was important here because again, they are professionally bad.
Yes.
Right? We have to have those stakes of how bad these creatures are. Second, fighting Trollocs versus fighting fades.
Extremely different.
Extremely different. Also, not only that, but he has lost this connection that like makes him more connected to his fighting partner. Like he's lost it. And he's fighting 3 Thades.
Yeah.
Well,
2.
Well, he beheads one.
He beheads one and he has to fight the other 2.
But still.
Yeah.
That's 2 on 1. That's pretty impressive.
Another thing that's been mentioned, I believe, by the actors as well, and this is a slightly upsetting parallel, is a lot of the emotional beats in Lan and Warren's storyline so far can be compared to the emotional beats in a story about parents losing a child.
Which is significant considering that Lan thinks they lost Rand.
Yes, and that their whole mission...
They lost their mission / their power. Well, and we'll get into the mission of it all when we talk about the color transformation of Moiraine's outfits.
Yes.
But Lan is also shirtless, which I think is more than just fan service.
Yeah.
I think it's also to showcase his newfound vulnerability. There are emotional stakes here that will be further explored down the line. Not to mention, how is Moiraine supposed to help the world being deprived of her power? Can she find other kinds of power? We'll get into that, right? Because it's not interesting, again, watching depressing McGee, right? If she just sat there and cried about how she's lost her powers, that's not the Moiraine we know.
No.
Okay, we get the introduction of Adelius, is what they call her in the show. So I'm going to go with that.
Slightly different from how we pronounce it, but whatever.
And her sister Varen. Have I not been saying all year that I think they might make Varen and Adelius sisters?
Yes, you have.
I said it. Okay. Varen is clearly the practical one in muted colors and practical fabrics. Adelius is more lavish in florals and what looks to be silk. Adelius's move to the left makes us instantly love her. We have to remember how a character, and this is going to be so important, a character making us laugh instantly endears them in similar ways to them showing their kindness.
Yes.
Or vulnerability.
That is true of a couple characters this episode, I mean. I think Adelius and Uno both, the writers have gone out of their way to make them funny.
I think the writers have gone, this is my thing about dramas. I do think they need to have some dose of humor because otherwise, again, it's depressing McGee.
Yeah.
Like, I have a hard time with dramas that are just that. I need a little ha-ha in my, and that goes back to like, Hitchcock would put laughter before his scares because it made the punch of that scare more compelling.
Yeah.
You know, our emotions are all very closely tied to one another. And that brings us to the inciting incident. And if you want to find out what that is, you'll have to find out after our ads.
Welcome back.
Okay, so the inciting incident is
an hour in, the inciting incident.
Bail Domon's arrival.
Oh, we're back, baby. Oh, hell yeah. An hour into the inciting incident? This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I so miss this. This is because we're fucking nerds and we want to just nerd out about structure and storytelling.
Yeah.
Give us a microphone and suddenly you'll never hear us shut up.
That's true.
All right.
We did 7 hours about episode 8.
Bail Domon's arrival with a broken Quendiar that implies maybe there's more than just a Shamael on the loose.
Something bad's going on.
Something bad's going on. And the poem, which introduces an additional question that propels the episode. The fuck's in that poem and what's Moiraine hiding from Lan? Which is, notably, again, the last thing he asks her. What are you hiding from me? Or keeping from me? Whatever it is. I'm going to paraphrase.
Now, I don't remember if he gives... I think he just shows her the Quendiar this scene. He talks about it a little bit more later, but we come to learn that this is an unbreakable material that has broken. It's the same thing that seal was made out of.
But this is important because up until now, this inciting incident is also kind of the stasis break, right? We have a stasis going, Moiraine in these muted colors, everything's depressing, she is bummed out.
Funny at Adelius and somber Varen.
Right. And then all of a sudden we have a break in that stasis. Suddenly Moiraine has a mission again.
Yes.
She's no longer the sad sack in the bath.
Yes, this is, she's had 20 visitors, 50, Varen says a large number of visitors.
Right.
Lan has been kept in the dark about them, and then this guy seemingly brings something that is actually of use.
Yes, this has given her a direction to go in.
This Bail Domon
This
fellow.
is important. So, and that reflects in the fact that Oh, that's our dog, weeble wobbling. And that reflects in the fact that after that, Moraine gets blue again.
Oh, she does, doesn't she?
Yeah, she starts to slowly get more and more blue. She's brusque to Lan. A lot of people brought this up. She's trying to push him away.
Yeah.
Likely, and they say this in the X-ray as well, likely because she can't protect him anymore the way she needs to. And so she's trying to save his life.
And I want to point out, this is a very close parallel to the way that Rand is behaving at this point in book 2. The first maybe 100 pages of The Great Hunt, things were markedly different at the end of season 1 from the end of book 1 for a lot of reasons that you can listen back to about our old episodes about. But essentially, book 2 kind of starts with a lot of Rand pushing people away.
Well, he's doing it still. He's pretending he's dead. That's the ultimate push you away.
Yes, I was going to say, and in season 2, he has succeeded.
Yeah.
But he's pushing people away to keep them safe. And I think you are right, and I want to echo this, that Moiraine is pushing Lan away in no small part to keep him safe. And also because she feels like she has failed. She is probably not worthy of him, right?
Beating herself up for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's trying to save him. And I think it's a fun reversal in the whole man wants to protect woman, so he pushes her away trope.
Yes.
I also love that they're exploring how hard this is on both of them, giving us a great look at how a traumatic event affects more than just the person going through it. It affects the people they love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, Lan is now in a position where he cannot help her with this thing.
No, he just has to bear witness to her suffering.
Which, obviously the suffering is harder, but that is in and of itself really hard.
Which also, I ask the people around, when you are suffering, how often do you also push away the people you love the most?
Tends to happen.
Or try to isolate yourself from those people to spare them your suffering. It happens a lot. To me, this is very realistic of someone who is as hyper-independent as Moraine.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean she's just sitting around feeling sorry for herself and just being mean to Lan for no reason. It's motivated. She's trying to get him to leave her because she wants to protect him and keep him safe. And she's not going to be able to boom, pow, zap things the way she used to be.
Right.
So then we get to Egwene at the tower. She's working hard, but hardly working. No, she's working hard and Nynaeve's hardly working. But she's being treated like a nobody, setting her up for a very relatable conflict with Nynaeve that was already starting to get set up in season 1 when she hears Nynaeve is the most powerful channeler in 1,000 years in Swan's office and stares at Nynaeve. Right?
Yes.
That's the initial seed. Egwene is not a nobody at the Two Rivers. She is the daughter of the innkeeper, right? Like
Yes.
we see her in the beginning. She goes through this, womanhood ceremony and everyone's congratulating her. It's like she has the sweet 16 that everyone goes to.
Yes.
Right?
She's well known
She's
and
the girl
beloved in the community.
Whose parents can afford to throw a hell of a sweet 16.
Yes.
So being treated like nobody and she was not only that, she was going to be the wisdom at some village eventually, right? So she's not nobody back home. She's a smaller fish in a much bigger pond now.
Yes.
Right? But
And
Nynaeve is not.
Nynaeve is big deal.
Nynaeve is huge deal. So this is as rough a transition for Egwene as it is for Nynaeve. Egwene's whole thing in the books is that she's someone who tries very hard and occasionally gets overlooked or overtaken despite working hard. It's a very relatable issue for a lot of people and serves to ground her ambition in emotional stakes. Extreme close-ups. So that's when the camera's like super close to something.
Yeah.
There's really big close-ups on her tasks, like the bucket and stuff.
Yeah.
Which showcases the oppressive nature of the tasks, right? It's so there, right? It's like
it's all encompassing. It's exhausting. Yeah.
But then when you focus on Egwene, it's like these wider frame shots and these big hallways.
Vaunted towers, vaunted hallways. Yeah.
To establish how small Egwene feels in her surroundings.
Yes.
A real emphasis on how big the tower is and how small Egwene is within it that is furthered by Madeline Patton's incredible acting and use of posture.
Yes. And this is also when we get the scene where she walks in on Alana and her warders, right?
Yeah, I was just about to get there.
Yeah, go
What
ahead.
do you have to say about it?
Well, I think it showcases again that she is essentially that, and the scene where Lyanna just throws a cup in her
queen.
satchel. Lyanna, so if I said Alana, yeah.
She really is a keeper.
These both serve to showcase how she's essentially furniture.
Yeah. She's a nobody. Why
Yeah.
should they worry about her. She's essentially like a pledge in a sorority.
Yeah. And she and Nynaeve have this lovely conversation because Nynaeve is not having it. Nynaeve's pissed.
It's a rough transition for all of them.
And Egwene is the one who says, everybody had to do this. Right? This is Egwene who says that. She goes, all of the Aes Sedai had to do this, even the Amerlin seat.
And Nynaeve's like, I'm 25. I'm too old to go through some kind of pledge thing. My brain is fully developed.
Oh, and we also get that great scene where she's cleaning the Amerlin's room and she looks at her robes and is like, that's so cool.
What a cute little dork.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Alana's in bed with Maxim and Ivan. First of all, yay, positive depictions of polyamory.
Yeah, very good.
Second, LOL. So funny.
Bit awk.
Third, again, setting up, Egwene's invisibility and feelings toward Nynaeve, and also setting up her relationship with Alana and further establishing the relationship between Alana and her warders, which is going to be kind of important considering that the relationship between an Aes Sedai and her warder is really impacted in the A-plot.
Yeah, relevant.
But yeah, they're playful together. We love a romance that is playful. So we've got more and more obstacles. The novices are in white, which people were worried about not being true. And they're watching the warders spar, just like in the books.
Mm-hmm.
So the novices being in white has not been changed, but we are adding the practicality of them not wanting to go through a tub of Clorox every day, which I think is really smart, because frankly, that would take me out.
It'd be a lot.
All right, in the kitchen, I potentially spy Elsie Grinwell as the blonde.
They named her Novice 1.
There's time.
I know.
Egwene and Nynaeve talk about how frustrated Nynaeve is, and Egwene says it's building character, and Nynaeve says an incredible line, I have enough character.
Very clever. Very, very Nynaeve thing to say.
A great explanation of how the magic system works. The show gave us a slow exposure to the magic system to make it easier on first-timers. Ooh, I loved Egwene's, I didn't come here for easy.
And I want to point out, by the way, that this was something that we discussed extensively as probably going to be when they're in the tower in season 2. That we get into the sub-categorizations of the power. We get into what the threads are. We get the mechanics more in detail. There are still mechanics we haven't heard explicitly within the bounds of the show.
Let it cook.
I mean, I expect it will come out in time.
I feel that they picked...
Some things will also change.
I also said it's going to be in a lesson to the novices. Did I not say that?
You did say that.
Because you know why? I knew that.
Why?
Because it is easiest to explain something new to an audience. This is just a trick. You always want someone who is as new to something as an audience member. That's why it's like someone's first day on the job and they're explaining how the rules work, or someone's first day in the oppressive regime.
This is why Ice-T always asks the questions.
Yes,
on,
in some show.
SVU.
In SVU. Oh yeah, we could talk about it. So yeah, we always need someone who's on the audience's level in terms of understanding. Who better to be a novice in the situation than the novices themselves? Because yeah, it's literally called you're supposed to have a novice.
Yeah.
So why not use the novices?
The literal novices.
It just makes it easier. It makes it easier when you have one dummy.
Mm-hmm.
Not too dumb, because then the audience will get ahead of that character, but someone who will be at the audience's level. Egwene going, I didn't come here for easy. Again, we're getting at that hardworking, ambitious character that is immediately juxtaposed by Nynaeve's attitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
Alana's description of the power is straight out of the books, and also, very appropriately for her, quite sexual.
Yeah.
Nynaeve drinks the water rather than having to potentially channel. I freaking loved this.
Now, some people felt that this was really out of line of her character. I disagree.
Really?
Some people said she would never have given up, she would never have stopped trying, etc., etc. I don't know that I agree with that.
I didn't consider it to be giving up.
Yeah.
Here's my interpretation. Nynaeve is not someone who likes to fail in front of people that she shouldn't be failing in front of.
Yes.
She's going to look at Egwene especially is someone that she is like, I am her mentor.
Mm-hmm.
So failing in front of Egwene, when Egwene's here, super channeler girl, being like, I didn't come here for easy, so I'm going to channel without my hands, right? Nynaeve's not going to want to fail in front of her.
No.
That's humiliating. She's 25 years old. She's older than all these girls. That would be so embarrassing for her. She was the big fish in the teensy
That's the other
puddle.
thing, too. She was the biggest fish.
Anyone
right?
who's tried to learn something as an adult knows how much vulnerability that takes. Not to mention also, the last time she really got to channel, she almost died.
Yes, and notably has not channeled since.
I mean,
He's
she can
unable
only
to.
channel when she's angry or afraid.
Seems
is what
like
they
it's
said.
something like that. Yeah.
So when she's experiencing an extreme emotion.
Yeah.
So to me, it's not that she gave up.
No.
It's that she's a miasma of feelings right now.
And she still accomplished the specific task. The specific task was, you're going to drink the water. She said, okay, fuck you. I'm going to drink the water.
Like if Sun Bowie back home, right, using an example from the books, went up to Nynaeve and was like, this is what you're going to do. Nynaeve would be like, go fuck yourself. I'm going to break a broom over your head.
Yeah.
So
Book
honestly,
Nynaeve
Alana's
anyway.
just lucky that Nynaeve didn't break that glass over her head.
Attacking people. Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I liked it a
Yeah,
lot.
but Nynaeve was once someone people respected and came to for guidance, but now she's completely starting over and it's humiliating. And Alana is bringing extra special attention to her, and everyone is paying extra special attention to her, and she's fucking it up. That's a lot of pressure, a lot of stress.
Yep.
Alana also during this, which might also be why Nynaeve had a bad reaction to her, brought up Nynaeve's trauma in Faldara during the scene to provide us with an explanation on why she might be struggling so hard.
Yes. And I really like that they did this, by the way, because I know we get hints that prior to Faldara, she's been having trouble channeling, right? We get the whole I haven't been able to listen to the wind, etc., but it seems like seeing what can be done with the power, what Amalisa did using their power, has really, really scared her. Really
Yes.
deeply frightened her of using it at all.
And that makes sense. I would be scared too.
Yeah.
Listen, there was a spider. I'm healing my relationship with spiders right now. But I was in the car today and I guess a spider had somehow gotten into my car and made a web on my front seat that I didn't notice
That's
till I
not
sat
fun.
down. And then I found it, the spider crawling all over my legs. And I just panicked and slapped myself a billion times and ran out of the car screaming. So I'm still working on, when a spider touches me, but I can be like in a room with one and be like, look at you being there. So that's, progress. I also couldn't help but feel like this scene was very reminiscent of a lot of like military training moments.
Yeah, you mentioned this.
Where the drill sergeant states like, no one is leaving until you accomplish this huge task, right? And we see that like, we're not going to give up. I think we've been conditioned to believe that the protagonist in that situation will be like, Officer Duty Hops in Zootopia, where she's like, I don't know how to quit.
I'm going to beast through it.
But it feels fitting both to Robert Jordan's military background and that Alana is part of the military branch of the Aes Sedai.
Oh my God, yeah.
We expect Nynaeve, based on past stories, to do everything she can to meet the expectations, making it hysterical when she doesn't.
Yes.
Right? Because this is Rafe going, I have a download, Rafe, and of course the writers, going, I have a download in my head of like what our expectations would be for a scene like this. I'm going to subvert it. That's knowing the rules and breaking it.
Yes.
So we have the meeting of the teachers, the staff meeting after that.
Yes.
And we find out that, Leandrin immediately is like, oh, maybe she doesn't have a good enough teacher. If only there was a woman in red that could teach her.
She's so snarky.
And, and they're all like, you can't teach a novice because last time you did, a novice died.
You killed one.
Which
Not
makes
good.
us go, ooh. That raises the stakes for when she does ultimately win in this situation and gets to go talk to Nynaeve and goes, whoever died from a little talk.
Look, I've seen the first episode of Battlestar Galactica.
Talks can be very harmful.
Yeah.
There's a discussion also of Logain and a channeler who may be even stronger.
Yes, another false dragon.
Which is kind of alarming considering how destructive Logain was.
Yes. So, and they talk about this in the vein of, hey, y'all, the last battle's fucking coming. We should probably make sure that Nuke Girl is ready.
And so they decide for some reason to let Leandrin talk to her.
They want to get Nuke Girl ready.
They want to get
Shiriam,
Nuke Girl ready.
The mistress of novices goes, well, it's worth a try.
Yeah.
A lot of Leandra in this episode. I'm really enjoying that.
I love Kate Fleetwood, so I'm not complaining. Perrin writes a letter to Egwene and Nynaeve saying that they're all he has now, reminding us Rand is dead, Matt is MIA, but even subtler, reminding us that Layla is dead.
Very sad.
Loyal mentions that Ingtar hired something called a sniffer. Uno talks shit about the tracker's signal fires.
Yeah.
He also mentions smelling Pat and Fane as Perrin is listening. Setting up Uno as comedic relief in this moment.
Yes. It's
making
very
him
funny interaction between him and Loyal.
Yeah, super silly, where he's like, you taking the piss? Whatever it is. Remember when I said how comedic moments have a lot of power over an audience? We love someone who is funny because it makes them feel like they're our friends.
Yes. Now, you had a qualm with something that you felt could have been better addressed from the end of last season. That I feel like this is the right time to bring it up.
I did think, and I'm still thinking that we might have a discussion about this, just not yet. But Loyal got stabbed.
Yes.
I just feel like potentially we may have wanted to address that, but
yes.
I don't necessarily think that we won't.
Yes. Now, I will also posit it's been 6 months.
Right. So it hasn't come up.
Yeah.
There hasn't been an organic way to bring it up.
Yeah.
And I'll talk in the spoiler section about when I think we might be able to have a more organic discussion about it.
Do we want to mention now why we as book readers expected this to be more significant?
No, it's book spoilers.
Okay, we'll talk about that in the book section.
And then we get to the point of no return. So this is we can't go back from where we are right now. This is like a moment that sets everything kind of in motion. We meet a guy named Elias with golden eyes like Perrin. He reveals the signal fire isn't his and leads him to dead Tinkers who were attacked by Fane's men. Perrin's relationship with violence is further explored as the people he was vibing with last season show him the consequences of sticking to pure nonviolence.
Yes.
Probably death.
Probably death. Although the girl got away, right?
Yeah, because it kind of looked like everyone else fell on the sword for her,
and
including a dog.
You went out of your way to check this is not the same girl.
I slowed it down to make sure. I double checked, triple checked. She's not the same kid.
From the cold open.
Cold open. No, different Tinker girl. Which I like because to me it showcases one, like what happens when you're on either side. Like if you're on the good side, quote unquote, you get killed. Your family gets killed. Everyone dies. So perhaps there's a reason why a Tinker might want to be a dark friend. We
also get, Perrin has this sort of like flashback thing where he watches, there's a howl of a wolf and then he sees the attack sort of happen.
Yeah.
And then when it closes, he's locked eyes with Elias.
So,
which I think goes back to your season question.
Really quickly, Elias is introduced as someone potentially menacing.
Yeah.
Right? He's a little stoic. He's not funny, so he's not endearing himself to us. He's not vulnerable, so he's not endearing himself to us. And he shows no points of kindness, so he's not endearing himself to us. Those are the three big things we need to endear someone to us. So we're kind of like unsure of where, but he also hasn't kicked a puppy. So we're not really sure where we stand with Elias. And I think that's on purpose because we're not really sure where we stand with Perrin's powers either. Are they good or bad? We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the point of no return, right? Of this episode. We can't leave what we're doing and just get back together because if we abandon what we're doing, people will die. Right? Perrin seeing that if he just lets Pat and Fane go, people will die.
Yes.
And that's going to be a thread that's true for every single person. If they let people go and go actually, I'm going to be selfish and get back with my friends, it could result in a lot of shit. Perrin appears to be able to see into the past as the Tinker Massacre, and Elias seems to have the same ability. They reveal that it looks like a child escaped the slaughter. I really like this choice. This isn't quite how these skills manifest in the books. I don't think it's a spoiler to say that.
No, I think this is a direct comparison. I think it's fine.
We have not yet perfected the art of smell-o-vision. And so, I'm going to say that this is as good as, because I was racking my brain. I was like, how are they going to accomplish that without it looking like Pepe Le Pew?
Yeah, because in the book, one of the things that Perrin has going on is that he has an incredibly strong sense of smell.
Which they kind of get at, but I think, here's my read on it. So, I have been reading...
And he can also, smell things that have happened. Go ahead.
I have been reading this book called An Immense World by Ed Yong.
Yes, Ed Yong.
which is all about how animals perceive our world and how kind of the sensory sciences have been really kind of blown up of late because we've stopped looking at animals and their senses from a human lens. And we started looking at them from a purely like place of study, not like how do we compare them to how humans can do things? It's like, how do animals just perceive our world in a way where we're not comparing or contrasting them to human beings?
Yeah.
We're just looking at it as it is. And we're learning a lot of new shit from that. From just taking ourselves out of the equation, not worrying about us so much. So one of the things that they've learned about dogs is dogs and wolves, by extension, have such a keen sense of smell. They can smell into the past.
How do you mean?
So they literally, through their ability to smell, the ways that their nostrils are made up, the way that they're kind of like a apostrophe almost, when they're breathing out, they're still breathing in.
They're still smelling.
Yeah. They can smell. That's why when they kind of go like, they're smelling both ways.
Yeah.
And what they can do is they can understand what has happened there before.
Right.
And they can tell time based on how much your scent has faded.
Right.
That's fucking crazy.
So this is sort of a representation of what would happen if you took that degree of sensory awareness and combined it with the cognitive, rational, puzzle solving brain of a human, essentially.
Yeah. And my thing is it's different than Min's ability because, one, at the beginning, you always hear a wolf howling.
So far, yeah, that did happen.
Right. And Min's viewings from last season are super shiny. Right? Have you noticed that? They're like super shiny.
Parents are kind of shiny.
But parents are like moving faded.
Sure.
Right? Like they're like kind of like there's like a weird frame rate to them.
Sure.
Almost.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
They're
like
also,
it's kind of choppy as it moves.
They're also explicit things that have already happened, whereas Min's are
what is going to happen.
Metaphors or explicit things that are going to happen.
Right. So Perrin can smell the past, essentially, like a dog.
Yeah. And he sees it.
Yeah.
And his eyes get gold.
And his eyes get gold, and that doesn't happen to men. So they have different abilities, essentially.
Yes. We should probably take a quick second before we dive ahead.
Speaking of abilities, here's your ability to listen to ads.
Welcome back.
All right, let's dive back in. Boop, boop, boop. I also said the child is a different child than the one we saw earlier, but that serves to showcase the potential consequence of ending up on the wrong side of the dichotomy, good and evil. We will instantly side against the Shinaran man who killed a dog and tried to go after a little girl.
Yeah, those are all the shitty things to do.
Both are big no-nos in the villain canon. It's literally the two worst kick the dog moments you can do.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah. We love our dogs. We love our children. Story turn. So now we learn new things that kind of ramp shit up to the climax. Bail Domon comes to talk to Moraine and shows her Quendiar that's broken, just like in the Eye of the World, indicating that other Forsaken are loose in the world.
And if you're looking for the specific instance of what gives us this piece of information, Ishamael in the cold open says, he let me out at the Eye of the World. He released me from my prison. So it stands to reason that Rand cracking that seal let Ishi out.
Yeah. So if there's another seal somewhere that is broken, and we already know there are 8 Forsaken, at least.
At least. From
it
Twitter.
Stands to reason that maybe another one's out.
We also really haven't talked about what a Forsaken is. Ishi mentions, we call him Ishi colloquially. Ishamael mentions that he is called Forsaken. We will get more information about this as we go on. You can stand to assume right now, well, he's one, so it's probably bad.
Probably bad.
Now, what is this thing? He's got a piece of Quendiar from a moon dial?
A moon
What
dial.
the fuck is a moon dial?
I assume it's like a sundial, but different, like how you would
Is that a real
tell
thing?
time at night. I don't know.
Because now I'm just really curious.
Is that would it be how you tell time at night? I mean, I would assume that if it's the sun
yeah,
is
wow,
down,
it is. Yeah,
you would
that's cool.
absolutely need a way to tell the time at night, right?
Mm-hmm. There's a Quendiar moon dial.
How else do you know when to put the kids to bed? At this first story turn, it's set up to look like repeat information since we know this about Quendiar, but we also have to remind the people who haven't watched in a season. But then the poem is presented, which is the new information propelling us to the midpoint. Lan and Tomas talk about how the bond between himself and Moraine has impacted him. I loved Tomas's line, "You don't seem like a man who minds silence," to Lan.
Yeah.
Just, they understand these characters. You know, they really do. Lan mentions that Moraine wants him to leave, but he won't, though he's technically free and encouraged to even be with Nynaeve. His loyalty to his oath is as strong as the bond itself. He's not someone who will turn his back on something just because it's difficult. Domon haggles with Moraine over the Quendiar and a poem written in blood, which is always a good sign.
Very dramatic.
When something is written in blood, you can take that to the bank. Always good. You should definitely pursue it. He learned to haggle from someone called the Sea Folk.
Yes. Some other culture.
He also mentions that some cloaked men have been following him, thinking that they're from Moraine. Hilarious moment between himself and Moraine where she takes the poem. The Sea Folk may be good at the game, Master Domon, but the Aes Sedai invented it. Moraine still has powers, even if it's not magic.
And she's wearing blue again, isn't she?
Mm-hmm. She's down, but she's not defeated.
Could part of this be that she's keeping up appearances with Domon in the blue?
Could be, but also the fact that she now has this new mission, I think, brings out this sassy spark that we haven't seen in a second.
I'd buy that.
But also just her powers of negotiation showcase that she has powers still at her disposal, even if they're not magic.
Yeah.
She's not like this useless waif now. She's still got it. It's just not all of it. And like I said, she's down but not defeated. That's important. We need to believe Moraine can still win and that she's still got abilities. Otherwise, it's too much despair and not enough hope.
Yep. Balance. Then
we have Nynaeve sword fighting with the warders, answering that really big question from the preview.
There was much consternation about this 10-second clip before the season came. People were worried that I'm not going to get into it. Essentially, I like this scene. This without getting too specific, this parallels a lot of moments in the books where channelers discuss how it may or may not be useful to also know swordplay, and we get a wonderful rebuttal in a moment from Liandrin where she says, "Who the fuck needs it? Look what I can do."
Yeah, I also think that it makes sense that when Nynaeve is missing the person that she's kind of grown into, like she really likes Lan, she's going to hang out with his friends.
Yes.
She doesn't have any friends at the White Tower. I'm assuming that if Egwene resents Nynaeve hasn't necessarily endeared herself to anyone else with her antics.
Probably not.
I imagine she doesn't have a ton of friends, but it looks like she has a great rapport with Maxim and Ivan. So why would she not go hang out with them?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Also, sword fighting is a great way to get across power dynamics.
Yes.
And externalizing verbal sparring, because having someone in a room and talking is a lot less interesting than having some people play with swords.
Yeah.
And that would, of course, be what the warders would want to do as a hangout activity. We've seen that from last season with Lan and Stepan. They hang out and play swords together. That's what they love.
Kind of their whole thing.
They're just Ken. Anyway, their job is sword. But it showcases that she's still got a connection to Lan even when he's not there, and she feels that she can be vulnerable with his warder friends in a way that she can never be with her best friend Egwene, because she sees herself as Egwene's mentor, whereas with them she's more of an equal or even a pupil. She's even comfortable enough to let herself be taught. She's also not afraid to fail in front of them while sword fighting because they've earned her trust in a way that the others haven't. When she fails in front of them, she laughs about it. She laughs it off. It doesn't matter to her. Even though she's a healer, she puts herself in the vulnerable position of learning something new as an adult and potentially doing something that she might fear because of that trust, right? Like a healer who is picking up a weapon. That's a big deal.
Big time.
This level of finding trust with someone and ultimately herself may be the key to breaking her block. Lan is uber present in this scene, even though he isn't mentioned, because the foundation of this friendship was formed through him, and is likely why they're looking out for her so much. Maxim also displays his loyalty and connection with Alana that is above his friendship with Nynaeve, even though they appear to be close, by correcting Nynaeve and demanding she show Alana the proper respect. That's Alana Sedai to you. Loved that. Giving even more context to the Lan and Moraine relationship. It's above friendship, which they said last season. It's above friendship. It's above like parent-child even.
Yeah. It's closer than husband and wife. Yeah.
Yeah. But we get a little show not tell of that. All right. We good on that scene?
I think so. It's a good scene. Is the next thing Leandrin?
No, it's Egwene knocking on Alana's door.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about that.
Okay, so Egwene knocks on Alana's door and says the best line.
She says, "Are you decent?" What did she say?
Do you need a moment to get dressed?
Yeah.
Incredible. Being funny, and then, by extension, as we know about people being funny, endearing us to her. Alana, once again, is sitting there eating a fruit associated with womanhood and sensuality.
She loves her fruits.
The pomegranate. It's always fruit that's sexy.
It is always fruit that's sexy.
It's pomegranates, figs. I'm just saying. She's never deep-throating a banana. It's always like a woman fruit. She offers it to Egwene, but Egwene is not ready to receive that.
She's not on that train.
Also, it's going to always call in like Persephone, all kinds of shit.
Yeah.
Even the fruit she's eating is purposely giving us insight into her character. Egwene tries to mimic how Alana is sitting, which showcases how much she tries to be like the mentor she has.
Go ahead, sorry.
What?
You first. I know what you're going to say. Go ahead.
Making her lack of a braid really telling about her changing dynamic with Nynaeve. Could that possibly raise the stakes for Nynaeve failing in front of Egwene?
A little bit.
If she feels Egwene pulling away from her as a mentor?
It is such a subtle detail that is it's less explicit than it is in the books, is that her hair ain't braided. And we got that scene in episode 1 where in season 1 where Nynaeve talks about the braid and talks about what the braid indicates and talks about what the braid represents, and Egwene left home and now she's like, eh.
Yeah. Alana misunderstands what Egwene is asking for and gives advice on handling multiple partners.
Oh, and can I also just say that this is also going to make that tension between Egwene and Nynaeve even stronger.
Yeah.
That tension about sort of, which is very, I think, in tune with Egwene's character of sort of, I am working my fucking ass off here. You're not.
Right.
Can I have a little fucking recognition?
Exactly. Alana gives Egwene advice on handling multiple partners, though if you listen, the blooming metaphor isn't unlike what she tried to tell Nynaeve about channeling.
No, it's really well constructed, this bit, because for about 2/3 of it, you can go,
Is she talking about sex or channeling?
where are we going here?
I can't really tell. Is she talking about sex? I also appreciated that Alana was not embarrassed at the misunderstanding. Sexuality isn't embarrassing to her because she's a grown-ass woman.
Yes.
And nor should it be to an adult woman, but most comedies would have it be an embarrassing thing, right?
Yes.
Most things would have it be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Now, the one thing I will say is Alana is she disregards Egwene's comfort level with the situation.
Yeah.
Right? I just think it is an important note to mention for her character that she is very comfortable where
others.
She is comfortable.
She's also comfortable with others' discomfort.
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting stuff.
Yes.
Whoops, sorry. My notes scrolled up for some reason. But I did just love her. Oh.
It was really fucking funny.
I also really loved the line, remember things are messy before they are perfect. Nothing worthwhile is neat and tidy. Just stamp that on Egwene's forehead, you know?
Yeah.
Then we get to the midpoint of the episode. Nynaeve trying to practice alone, showcasing once again her fear of public failure. She doesn't give up, right? She does practice. She does try. She just doesn't want to humiliate herself by failing over and over again. But she does try.
Yes.
And then, what?
There is a scene, there are a few scenes in one of the books where while Nynaeve is trying to break through this block she's doing these ridiculous tasks to try to break the block. She's getting drunk. She's staying up all night. But these things are done generally either one-to-one with a teacher or alone.
Yeah.
Which I think is the biggest differentiator there.
Yeah.
Not in the kitchens.
But doing it in front of everybody is way higher stakes. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because none of us want to be the one who mispronounces bourgeois in class.
No.
I still think about it.
That happened to you?
Yeah, freshman year of college.
How'd you say it?
Well, I'd never seen it written out.
Burgoyes?
Burgios.
Yeah. Well, it's what it looks like.
That was a bad day. No one wants to be that person.
Someone's got to do it. We've all got to do it once.
Yeah, but don't you always think to yourself, oh, thank fuck it wasn't me?
Yes.
Yeah. She's just trying to avoid her Burgios moment. So Leandrin comes in and tells Nynaeve she's a disappointment. I think this is interesting. Nynaeve kind of laughs that off.
Yeah.
One, because I think Nynaeve will always present an outward tough face, but I think that would have cracked Egwene like tissue paper.
Absolutely.
Right?
Oh, well, I think that goes back to their respective feelings towards external authority.
Yeah.
Right?
Egwene loves authority.
Egwene desperately wants to please authority.
Same.
Nynaeve
It's like, I am the authority.
Yeah, Nynaeve only respects her own authority most of the time.
Yeah. She's like, I am authority. What are you talking about? That's why she doesn't want to look like she doesn't know what she's doing.
Yes.
Because Nynaeve is secure in her worth, and you can't wound where they don't bleed. Leandrin tells Nynaeve that practicing with the sword is beneath her.
Oh, yeah, this is a cool scene.
And she says, I don't want it to be a fair fight. I want to win. This scene is largely Swan in the books with Nynaeve.
Yes.
Leandrin uses Nynaeve's affection for... I like that they changed it to Leandrin because I feel like you had a really good point about this.
Yeah, so in the book, at this point, they're on the boat to Tarvalin from Faldara. And Swan had the Amerlin seat had gone to Faldara, and she is accompanying them back, and she is doing the occasional private lesson with these two. And I think that the more you put the magic pope in banal situations that we can see, the less mysterious, aloof, and significant she feels.
Mm-hmm.
Swan, so far in the show, she has shown up a couple of times very much in a tight position that is bounded on both sides by razors. She's navigating a tightrope, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of this plot she's got with Moiraine, this secret romance she's had with Moiraine. She is essentially for lack of a better term, a slave to her circumstance, which is a powerful circumstance. But she knows that, to paraphrase Galadriel, stray but a little and she will fall. And that is true in the books as well. But I think the more we keep her away from the brunt of the action, in a lot of ways, the more significant her effect is when it does happen. That's not to say that you can't have her teaching novice lessons, that you can't have her giving this demonstration to Nynaeve. I think that for the way the show is painting these arcs, it makes a lot of sense for Leandrin to do it, for reasons I could get into in the spoiler section. And it also makes a lot of sense to keep Swan as a special treat, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Ellie?
I agree with you. I think that first of all, it just feels beneath her. But the second thing is that the less we see somebody, the more powerful they feel.
Yes.
Yeah, agreed. Leandrin uses Nynaeve's affection for Lan in order to break Nynaeve's bond.
Yeah.
Block. My bad.
Yeah.
But
or at least get her around it.
But she also refers to it as a weakness. And Nynaeve doesn't truly get angry until Leandrin says hurtful things about warders that Nynaeve herself once said to Lan.
She did, didn't she?
Her own words are used against her, but
Yeah.
now she regrets, I think, saying those things to him.
Yeah.
When Nynaeve lets Leandrin go, right? Leandrin lands on her feet while Nynaeve is staggering. There's a clear power dynamic there. Leandrin's been around the block, for lack of a better term.
Yes. Yeah, very, very clever play on words there.
Leandrin informs Nynaeve that she can use her anger to channel because there's more than one way to channel. So, you know, Alana presented the pink supple flower bullshit, right? That's Lana's way, but Leandrin's like, get fucking pissed. Who cares? That's a way to channel too. Does it seem like a healthy way to channel? Probably not.
Now, we can talk about metaphysics later. I don't think this is a significant change because this is how this works in the book is Nynaeve has to get mad to channel.
Mm-hmm. Also, this harkens back to Leandrin talking about what the world will do to little girls with a spark of being greater than they are.
Yes.
Well, let's keep an eye on Leandrin and her obsession with protecting little girls because I think there's an insight into her character there. What happened to Leandrin to make her crave power like this? That's my big question. I think something traumatic happened to Leandrin, and that's my opinion.
I think that's very likely.
I don't know. Because I don't, at this point where I'm at, sincerely, I don't know about that for Leandrin. But that's my assumption about where they're going with this character. This scene also fully explains what happened to Moraine, linking the plot lines in my mind. I think everything that Leandrin did looked like what Ishamael did to Moraine last book. So I think to me that answered the question of cut off versus just
because
kept from it.
It is not clear whether Moraine has been permanently cut off from the power or temporarily cut off from the power. We know that you can shield people. We know that you can also gentle or still people. I think the visual vocabulary that we see for ripping the power out of somebody versus blocking it in, not block like Nynaeve's block. This is more that was more in keeping with a shield, and now what Leandrin does to Nynaeve is also very similar, I think, to what happened to Moraine.
Speaking of being cut off, we're cutting you off from the episode to break for ads.
Yes. Welcome back.
All right. We got the burial scene.
Yes. A lot of funerals in this series.
Can we pay a little attention to that star motif that keeps coming up?
I think it's spokes of a wheel.
Yeah?
I really do, because they keep burying people in a round, essentially.
Yeah.
And I'm 99% sure it's meant to be spokes of a wheel.
But then there's also the little girl playing on the thing, and it's a star as well.
Playing on the
stone stuff, the stone slabs. And she's like, and that's a star. And also the house that they're in is a star.
Yeah, it's possible.
I'm just putting it out there. It could be spokes on the wheel, though. Elias buries the dog.
He does, which is endearing.
And also seems significant based on what's going on with Perrin.
Yes.
Ingtar insisted on burying the Shienaran that betrayed him and gives some gorgeous thoughts about revenge to Perrin.
Really beautiful scene.
Gorgeous, which deepens the complexities once again of good and evil. If Shienarans sought revenge for every wrong done to them, there would be no Shienarans left. Layla's influence on Perrin continues as Perrin reflects on how she waved at Padan Fain, who is the reason for her death. I mean, other than Perrin. Perrin is afraid of, ultimately. Perrin is afraid of what his anger at that betrayal might make him do, and he's still torn between these two dichotomous sides of himself, the good and the evil.
I would say...
But what is it? What is evil for him?
Yeah, that's the thing, because is it good or evil, or is it pacifistic and belligerent?
But see, we could easily link pacifistic to good.
Yes, we could.
And we could easily, but look at the two Tinkers who are pacifists who are also dark friends.
Yes.
Right? Versus, look at, Dana, who theoretically went into being a dark friend for, humanity-saving reasons.
Well, you look at Valda, who I think is a hideous person, who, for all we know, we know there's at least one White Cloak dark friend, might not be that guy. That guy might very well be on the side of good while doing horrendous things.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think it's easy to want to link pacifism. Also, pacifism in the face of horrific oppression is actually also harmful.
Yeah.
Right? There's a reason why people are no, punch Nazis in the face.
It's nuanced. It's nuanced. It's a nuanced conversation.
But that's what I'm saying is with Perrin, he's also exploring the nuances of this conversation.
Yeah.
Sometimes people think pacifism means inaction.
Right.
And that's and being despondent or non-reactive, and yes and no, right? There's a more complicated question. If someone's beating someone else up and you do nothing to intervene, then that's just bystander effect.
Right.
So his also Uno's rigidity in this scene is a big juxtaposition to Ingtar.
Yeah, absolutely. He was pretty firm on fuck this guy, let him rot. Right?
Yeah.
It seems like he's got a pretty
spit on him.
Yeah, he's got a pretty strict moral code.
He does. In addition to that, I thought Ingtar asked a really interesting question where he was well, if you get an opportunity, maybe ask Padan Fain why he did it.
Yeah.
You might not like the answer, but you may want to know.
Ingtar really coming in with the
Hot nuance?
Possibly too much hot nuance, depending on who you ask.
Well,
but
he's a bit of, the creepy whistling kind of gives a little more mustache twirly than the rest of them, but there could be some nuance in evil.
I do appreciate that the Dark Friends seem to be very three-dimensional.
I love that.
Right? Talking about Pat and Fane, talking about the presumably mother of the Tinker Girl.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot going on that I'm excited about.
Yeah, me too.
Ishamael even. He's very three-dimensional.
So Lan comes into Moraine's little office and is basically like, what was all that about with Beldamon?
Yeah, and she doesn't tell him shit.
She doesn't tell him. And she eventually looks up and is like, and smiles at him and says, isn't Aes Sedai not allowed to have secrets? But that's been the problem between them.
Yes.
Lan now knows nothing about her.
Yeah.
Before, there weren't really secrets between them, and that's what sets him off. Like, there were secrets, but he still had access to her. She was still accessible to him.
Yeah.
But she's not anymore, and that sets him off. He's pissed now.
And to our read, this is to keep him safe. Yes. What he doesn't know
won't kill him. Since the bond between them is being further severed by her, he goes a step further by telling her to make dinner herself.
Yeah.
Moraine looks at the broken Beltane lamp, which ultimately is the thing that ties the plot lines together. It's interesting to me that her Beltane lamp is broken, not giving off any light, whereas the other ones are whole.
Yeah, and she notably they kind of seem to have made Beltane maybe more of a global holiday. In the books, it's pretty... No, I don't remember, actually. There's a lot of regional holidays, but it's possible that she's cognizant of it as well.
Yeah. Nynaeve brings Perrin's letter to Egwene. Though Egwene has her hair down, Nynaeve forgot Beltane. Both of these girls have abandoned parts of their home.
And Nynaeve seems pretty pissed that she has forgotten.
She's really upset. She can't believe it. She also hesitated before walking into Egwene's room.
Yes.
Phalanx.
Okay, technically this is a tortoise.
Believe that... No. I believe that Rafe Judkins did this for me.
So if you listen to our book episodes, you already know about this. There is a running joke that we have, which is anytime a military formation is described of armored soldiers or unarmored soldiers in a formation, Allie, what is that formation likely called?
A phalanx.
Inevitably. If it's an encircling enfilade, what's that?
A phalanx.
If it's a bunch of guys with spears in a box, what's that?
Phalanx.
What if it is a line of men with muskets?
Well, obviously a phalanx.
So when Perrin writes this beautiful letter, which, by the way, shout out to communication in my Wheel of Time, where that
we communicated about a phalanx. This was done for Wheel Takes. I believe it.
Where he's describing soldiers covering one another with their shields, which is technically a tortoise, but it looks like a phalanx.
I screamed phalanx.
She did.
Anyway. Perrin's letter talks about the dangers of them being scattered, hearkening back to the question of will they ever be able to come
shields
back
are also
together.
in a phalanx, so, it's a phalanx. We'll call it a phalanx.
Perrin seems to think that the closest they can be together is next year. He said, next year, I'll come to the White Tower with Loyal, and we'll celebrate Beltane together.
I think he was referring less to I won't see you until next year, and at the latest, let's make sure that next Beltane.
But that implies that he thinks that could be the latest that he sees them.
Sure.
That's a long time. Then we get to the story turn. Boom. Matt is in the White Tower and is being held by Leandrin.
This is kind of late for the story turn, isn't it?
Second story turn.
Oh, the second. What was the first one? First one was the poem?
I think so.
And a story turn is when new information is revealed.
Second story turn. Yeah, no, there's a story turn after the midpoint.
Okay.
This is the second story turn. So the second story turn is boom. Matt's in the White Tower being held by Leandrin. We get an answer on where he is.
Even though we kind of already had hints of that, we didn't see it for sure.
Perrin has we got hints? Oh,
Moraine writes the letter, yeah.
Perrin has a moment with the lanterns where he considers putting his ring on the lantern and sending it out, but he takes it back at the last second. He's not ready to let go of her yet. Oh, by the way, when we're at but the information that we have is that Leandrin's keeping communications about him from Matt.
Yeah.
That's the big story turn moment where we're like, oh, Matt still thinks that they've abandoned him.
Yes, she selectively omitted
Or I guess
that.
not abandoned him, but like don't like him.
Yeah.
Egwene talks, she selectively omitted that.
Is some real twisting of words here, right? Because she says not a single mention of Matt Cawthon in all these letters.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps there have been several. That's not a single.
That's true.
Seems
there
like
are ways to
perhaps.
get around the whole lying versus always telling the truth thing. Could also be the truth as she perceives it. Maybe
Could
she's
be.
not getting the full letter.
Possible. My
Lots of-
question is
Or she's lying.
where's she getting the letter? I'm impressed she's able to intercept this.
Truly.
Although I guess that makes sense actually.
Well,
'Cause the White
could somebody
Tower,
be copying it and giving it to her?
Yeah, the White Tower probably scans shit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Scans it. They have a magical scanner.
No,
It's
I
always
mean
jammed.
when letters come in, they intercept them, I
No,
assume.
no. They always need magical IT to come fix it, though.
Yeah.
Egwene there's never any toner, magical toner.
No, well, Magic IT exists because of magic printers.
Egwene talks about how much she misses Rand and Nynaeve. Rand, and Nynaeve assures her that she's always with Egwene, something that will potentially be a comfort,
Mm-hmm.
and answers the question posed to her by the warders earlier. Why are you here? She's here for Egwene. They're also revamping the reincarnation aspect of the world and encouraging Rand's spirit to find its way back to them. They're revisiting that, getting at the overall season arc plot question about whether they will master their abilities and reunite. Matt pulls the armoire down to pull a Shawshank.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
Rand reveals where he is, the light illuminating him.
Now, is that the climax of the episode, technically?
No.
No, even though, okay.
No, but it's kind of, I think it's still encapsulated in the story turn.
Sure.
I think this whole Beltane scene is the story turn,
Sure, I'd buy it.
personally. Did you want to go back and talk about Perrin in the Ring, though? I feel like we kind of brushed over that.
I really like that they're not writing her away. They're not writing her off.
They're really giving that death consequence.
Yes.
Which is so necessary.
Yes, an emotional weight,
Yeah.
which is
Like, if you're going to do a fridging,
Yeah.
let's really
Give it
fully
emotional weight.
go through that.
not
Yeah.
just plot weight.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, Rand reveals where he is, the light illuminating him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Bringing him out of the shadows and mirroring his last Beltane scene. But this time, he's alone. A taste of solitude, you might say.
There it is.
There it is. Okay. Lan says he wants them to wait for Moraine, and Adelius's face sends me. Oh, at dinner.
Oh, she's like, I just want to eat my fucking cauliflower, dude.
Which, I feel that. Varen tells Lan that what Moraine is going through would break anyone else, but not Moraine. Again, we're getting at, she's a strong biddy.
Yeah, she doesn't give a fuck.
This softens Lan to her obstacle.
Hey,
I think that's the first time anyone has ever told me to be quiet. What a great fucking line.
yes.
He brings up her food, noticing she's gone and allowing him to save her life. All is lost moment. Moraine alone with the Fade. Lan shows up, but is also bested. Moraine, notably, is in dark blue again. She's on her frickin' mission, but she's much more vulnerable than she was before. Do you want to say anything about this, by the way?
The first time I watched this battle, I had a lot of trouble telling what was going on.
Yeah, it is
Partially
dark.
because I was looking at it just because of the particular lighting I was watching it in. Then the second time I watched it and I saw the Fade start shadow stepping, I screamed because it's so goddamn cool. My one very small little nitpicky criticism is I love this battle. I do think it suffers a little bit from just stab 'em. So that makes me wonder if that's a question we're going to get answered later.
Potentially.
Because there were multiple times where I felt like they could have just stabbed him. But
By the way, you'll know how impressive this is. They shot that fight in 2 nights.
you fucking kidding me?
No.
That's insane.
Isn't that wild?
That's
I saw that in
nuts.
the X-ray.
Look, here's the
Daniel
thing.
Honey was like, oh, we shot that in 2 nights.
Here's the thing about
Night shoots are awful.
they're awful. Fight shoots are a nightmare themselves.
Okay, explain why night shoots are awful and explain why fight shoots
Well,
are
you're
a nightmare.
staying up. Well, first, let me just say, like, I just simply had to say I felt like they could have stabbed, but I know why they didn't, and I'm not actually upset about it because the battle was fucking cool, and I'm happy that it was cool. So, going back to night shoots and going back to fight scenes. Night shoots are a fucking nightmare because it was outside, right?
Outside.
Okay, great. So you're staying up all night.
It's fucking freezing.
You're staying up all night. It's probably cold. Lighting is as much of a pain in the ass as it ever is.
Everyone's cranky.
Everyone's having a bad time because they've all been awake all night. And probably, by the way,
usually have to like train yourself for a night shoot. So like you're also staying up until all night for like a week before so that you can handle it.
You are, because you're not just, night shoot does not mean, okay, we filmed from noon until midnight this time, so we got a few hours of night. No, night shoot means you got to set 2 hours before sundown to get into hair and makeup or however long. So they were filming until like the sun started to come up.
Yeah,
that's
you go
when
home
they lost
when the sun
light.
comes up.
So it sucks. It's not fun. Notably, Helm's Deep, I think, was like 2 months of night shoots. And on top of that, stage combat and combat of this type is so precise. We talked about this in the Blood Snow, how precise stage combat, fight choreography, not stage combat, not on stage, but combat like that is. And to do that level of intense multiple person fight choreo in 2 days, bananas.
That's bananas.
Absolutely fucking
but not
bananas.
only that, but at nighttime, where you can't see anything.
Yeah. I really like this fight, even if I had a little bit of you could have killed him. But again, that wouldn't be fun. If they were just dead. Then the show would be over.
Maybe they're theater kids with a flair for the dramatic.
Maybe they had a reason.
But yeah, Moraine left so that Lan was not impacted by her vulnerability, and she's ambushed by a fade. The fades fading into the shadows was fucking amazing.
It's so fucking cool. If you can't see it, turn your brightness up a little bit.
Oh, it's so cool.
Because they're like fully shadow stepping.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
So cool. Moraine again proves that she hasn't lost all of her powers when she's able to outsmart one of the fades.
She did air quotes on powers.
Yeah, powers. I mean, she's got other abilities.
Yeah.
But she also immediately gets reminded that she's still vulnerable and may still need help when she's injured by another fade and Lan saves her.
Yeah.
He answered, but what I love about it is it's not a like damsel in distress. Like she's handling it okay, even though she's been hamstrung. He answers the question we are asking during this fight. Where is Lan?
Yes.
Right? The whole fight, you're like, where the fuck is
dude?
Lan? Where the fuck is Lan? Where the fuck is Lan?
Now, some people have also asked, where was Moiraine going? I'm frankly not super concerned with it. I also think that there are a lot of possible places she could be going. She could be going to deliver a letter. She could be going to investigate Baal Domon's thing. She could be going to see if she can spy on the Fades. There's a number of places she could be going. She could be trying to run away and not have to have any kind of tough conversations with Lan about this.
I have spoilery thoughts about this.
Yeah. I think there are enough possible places she could be going that I'm not too unduly concerned with the specifics.
I know where she was going, I think, but
we'll talk about it later. Okay.
It's notable. Oh, yeah. Somebody was like, how was Lan fighting two Fades? The Fade Moraine injured got back up.
Yes.
And then it became a 2-on-1. It's notable that both Lan and Moraine are significantly less good at fighting without their bond. And the two of them made each other better.
Mm-hmm.
The Fades move freaky fast.
Really, really fast.
And Lan is injured. Yeah. I just can't believe they did it in 2 nights.
I have specific book quotations about Fade's strength. I can't read all of them right now because of book spoilers. I'll read them in the spoiler section. But suffice to say, especially early on in the books, if a Fade is there, you're probably not making it out unscathed.
No.
If 2 Fades are there, you're pretty fucked.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yeah, but
this is a good all is lost moment. All is lost basically being like, we're fucked.
Yeah.
We're the farthest away from our goal, essentially. Climax. Moraine tries to channel to save them, addressing the biggest question of where are her powers? Where are her powers? Lan reaches for her just as she reaches for Sidar. So, like, there's just a lot of
it's a nice parallel.
Yeah. For a split second, it seems like maybe her powers have returned to both her and the viewer. I was, like, tricked for a second. I was like, what?
What the fuck?
This is my episode 7. This is my episode 7. It's too soon. It's too soon, Rafe. It's too soon. It's episode 1 and it should be episode 7. And then
it was Adelius.
They tricked me for a second because I was like, I'll never be able to show my face again. But but I was not wrong. We realized it was Adelius.
However we want to say it.
Adelius?
We say Adelius. They're saying Adelius.
And Varen. So then we get to the resolution, right? Varen and Adelius save them, answering where they are at this time, right? Where are they? Is another question we're asking during the fucking fight. We're like, where are the other people involved in this too? And gives us a moment of reminding us all of all that Moraine has lost in terms of power. In an episode, Leandrin had just harped on the importance of power.
Yep.
And then we get our hook. Lan looking at Moraine going,
What are you telling me?
What aren't you telling me, or what are you keeping?
It's one or the other.
One of these. We're paraphrasing. Which is a nice button also to everything that's happening in the show, is everyone is keeping something from one another, but especially Moraine and Lan's plot. And if you want to find out what those things are, you're gonna have to keep watching.
Yep.
And that's the hook.
Yeah.
And that's our episode.
A lot of inciting incidents.
The folks.
A lot of them.
There's a lot of setup.
It's
which is good. We've got a lot of interesting plot lines coming.
Setup, review, not even review, but sort of, hey, how did we get from there to here? We skipped a lot of intervening time, which was fine to me.
To me was the perfect decision. If you're going to skip time, I think the perfect time to do it is between seasons.
But yeah, we get new inciting, exciting stuff from everybody, right? We get Leandrin and Nynaeve's special relationship. We get Moiraine gets the Quendiar. We get Perrin meets Elias, right?
Right.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else. We know where Matt is.
We know where where Rand is. We know he's around.
We know Rand's alive. Just inciting incidents stacked on top of inciting incidents, which is pretty fucking cool, in my opinion.
Which is going to set us up for a fuckload of obstacles.
A lot of other obstacles and
obstacles
tough things coming down the line.
Resulting in what will happen in episodes 7 and 8, which will be our point of no return. Cat's out of the bag, babies. We can't go back.
So, do we have anything else to say from a non-spoiler perspective?
I do not. I think we wrapped it up pretty well.
All right. Well,
you know what? 2 hours and 10 minutes, I think, or 19 minutes.
Yeah,
I think we did a really good job.
That's pretty good. Let's take a quick ad break, and then we'll come back.
And let's get some water.
Spoilers.
It's a spoiler, babies. Spoiler, 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 spoiler.
Welcome to spoiler. Oh, God, I used to make jokes like this. Shit. The only thing that's coming to mind is Spoilerama, and I've done that before. So welcome to Spoilungardon, where we discuss things that are spoilers for everything through what Allie's read, which for all intents and purposes today, we're just going to call it the end of Winter's Heart, because Crossroads is fun. Here we go. We're going to talk about some shit. We're going to talk about some shit with spoilers and some of the ramifications that might have longer term down the line. And thought processes, etc.
Okay. Awesome.
Wait, I'm readjusting my mic, and now everything has gone to shit. All right, yeah.
Okay,
let's go.
So to add to by the end of the season, I expect. So I said all of them to reunite at Falm, Matt to rejoin the party, Lan and Moraine to come back together. Moraine gets her powers back. Here are the spoiler ones. Egwene rescued from Shan-Chan.
Yeah.
Magic battle in the sky.
You think?
I think. Reveal Leandrin as Black Aja.
Likely.
Def. Okay. Oh, and I said, so the point of no return, where I said by the end of the season, I think we will likely have a whelp. The cat's out of the bag about Rand being the dragon reborn, and now, kind of everyone knows the dragon's around.
Is magic battle in the sky?
It seems like magic battle in the sky will be happening in episodes either 7 or 8.
I think we can obliquely reference the first 3 episodes as a whole. They do talk about it. Yeah.
So either in the climax or resolution episode, we're getting the magic battle in the sky. Come on, y'all. Ba-ba-ba. Oh, I posited that potentially the Shinaran that died over the Tinker Girl that he was trying to murder might have been us thinking that was the Shinaran at the Dark Friend Social, but that could be Ingtar also.
Well, I think it's a bait and switch, right?
Yeah, I think it's a total bait and switch. We're like, oh, okay, so we know that the Shinaran guy that was at the Dark Friend Social is dead. But no, I think it's Ingtar.
Yeah.
Also, Leandrin, I think, was probably there
Oh, for sure.
as the Black Aja.
I think that's highly likely. Suroth, obviously.
Represented, and Suroth was obviously the other one that was there.
I saw a white cloak, which makes me curious because we didn't meet Carradine.
Yeah, we
So
haven't met Carradine.
It's possible that we will meet. I mean, I'm
unless they
call me-
combine Carradine with someone else.
Call me crazy, but I don't think we've met all the characters in the Wheel of Time yet as of season 2, episode 3.
What?
But-
So is this a hint that Carradine is coming, or are they combining Carradine with someone else?
Well, I think that
Like, could they combine him with Valda? But that seems obvious.
I don't think they do that. Because Valda's got his own journey. It's the same reason why I don't think they're going to combine Leandrin with Elida. Not only because Rafe said that he's excited to see Elida come to screen eventually.
Yeah, and I think, I think we also need Eamon Valda to think he's a good guy.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing as with Elida in a lot of ways.
I think we have to show the spectrum of like what good guys, quote unquote, can be, and what bad guys could also be in like actually, there's a lot of hot nuance in this situation. I think Rafe is really bringing the hot nuance into this show, and I think it's great.
Allie,
because I actually think, really quick, I think that's Robert Jordan's thesis at the end of the day. And I think I've said that before, but I'll say it again because it bears repeating. Yeah. Yes.
Do we want to talk now, or do we want to wait until we do episode 3 breakdowns to discuss, I guess some of these plots that we are following are heavily divergent, which I'm fine with, from the plots as they are written in The Great Hunt. And one that is getting probably the most buzz as being markedly changed is Lan and Moiraine. I think it might be worth waiting until we have the full context of the first 3 episodes behind us.
I would agree with that.
To discuss sort of what we think the broader perspective and impetus outside of they wanted to give Rosamund something to do, which is a factor.
That is definitely a
That's
factor.
definitely a factor. They're not going to sideline her.
And frankly, they really can't sideline the Gandalf character. She's a big draw. But I think the other thing is, like, just magic women in general. They're not going to be like, here's magic women. Anyway, but I think the other, I do think that episode 3 is a better place for a more
we'll get into
rounded
the
discussion.
nitty gritty of it then.
But I think that in a book, you're kind of bouncing around between POVs and like stuff happens off screen, quote unquote. That kind of can't happen off screen in a TV show.
Can you elaborate?
TV shows, by virtue of the fact that they're TV shows, take on a like third person. The camera takes on like a third person omniscient role in the series. So when you have a book that's a first person, or I guess second person perspective.
Second person, it's third person. Well, wait, you mean you mean a third person perspective, but third person limited.
I do mean
third person limited.
That's what I mean. I was like, because I said first person, I was like, that's not right. And then I said second person, and I was like, that's not right. Thank you. Third person limited. A third person limited perspective versus a third person omniscient perspective. You're by extension going to like have to pull back and showcase more of the world at large in a TV show than you will in like a POV, right? Because like the point of the POV is that we're getting like limited information.
Yeah.
Right. And like we are obviously playing with that in the TV show, right? When we're having the Aes Sedai say things that are like incorrect, or people say things that are, they assume but are incorrect. And then all this like book fans go, and then we realize that they're saying the wrong thing on purpose, right? To give us that sense of limited perspective, but in this place that necessitates a third person omniscient perspective.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So we're going to have to pull back and evaluate the world as it is at large and the world building at large.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me. And especially
So that's one of the kind of reasons. And then we'll get further as time goes on into like how this is going to be important for understanding the Warder Bond.
Yeah.
The importance of, being connected to the source, which is of course going to be a huge thing down the line for characters like Logain, Swan, Liana, among others.
And I also want to take a moment to hold space for folks who may be missing other plot lines from the books that they would have preferred to see and are frustrated that there is new material. We're not saying by any means you must love every choice. Or
I think we've said this, though.
I know, but I think it bears repeating.
Okay.
That we're not saying when we discuss this choice we think was made this way and we like it or don't because of X, Y, and Z. Do not take that as if you don't like this or if you didn't enjoy this or if you would prefer something else, we hate you and you're wrong. It's not what we're saying.
That is what I mean. No, I would never say that. And I would never think it either.
I to zoom out a little bit and just sort of broadly discuss page to screen diversions and changes, really in season 1 and in season 2 thus far, from what I can discuss here and now. I think there is a lot of effort to bring the tone and maturity of the story of the first 3 books and the scope of the story in the first 3 books in line with the tone, maturity, and scope of the story from Shadow Rising on.
That is very valid, and I'm glad you pointed that out, because I think that when you are creating a TV series, you want from the beginning to give a very clear sense of the tone and where the story may be going and who the important characters are and what the maturity level is, right? In part, that's because I don't want to start watching a TV show with my nephew and then realize the next season that this show that we really liked is way too mature for him.
Yeah.
Right? Same thing with, with like Do Mice Wells, that's not going to be a scene I'm going to watch with my nephew.
No.
Right? So we kind of have to accelerate some of that development and showcase, like, from the beginning, this is a show that's not going to fuck around. It's going to be a show where, like, hard stuff happens and the character's going to be dealing with some deep fucking emotional trauma. And that's going to be real. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that they are accelerating the maturity and the tone in an effort to showcase where the story is going to go so that, you know, like, who am I going to watch this with? And is this show for me? Or am I going to get mad 5 seasons in that the show takes a different turn and becomes like about something that I was like, why was I invested in this show when it went in this other direction? It's like, well, it was always going to go in that direction.
Yeah.
When we just tricked you into liking it for 5 seasons and being loyal to it for it to go into a direction that you wouldn't want it to go in.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. So it's like we're trying to cultivate the fan base that is going to be a fan of where the story goes. Does that make sense?
That makes, yeah. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah. Oh, the speech, I think, this speech, that Ishamael gives the little girl about being a monster and la-da-da will be so poignant when we think about Perrin's plotline and his struggles with his wolf self, Rand and his struggles with his, like, dragon reborn-y self.
Matt, and coming to terms with the fact that he left the group.
Yep. Nynaeve, and no one should have that much power, right? Yeah, I think that pretty much encapsulated a lot of the characters' journeys in one speech. Yeah. Well done.
this season's gonna have a lot of monster in it, not the energy drink.
Oh yeah, Moraine's thing seriously sets up Swan, Lyanna, and Logain losing their powers for real, and how awful that is and will be for them. Can you imagine also? Well, different episode. I'll talk about it later. Is Varen a dark friend?
Yeah, this has been on your mind nonstop since you what? Can you? So for people who do not listen to our book episodes, Allie has a theory. We're currently mid book 10, about a book and a half ago, and again, there's going to be spoilers through the end of book 9. About a book and a half ago, Adelius died.
Can you imagine this Adelia? Oh my God, I'm going to cry.
Very sad.
Also, I couldn't help but notice that so many of her outfits have like reddish flowers on them. Yeah,
crimson thorn, yeah.
I couldn't help but notice that. And I was like, they're doing this on purpose.
So a couple books ago...
But yeah, I decided...
Yeah, go ahead.
I decided that Van Dien killed her for a billion reasons.
And you can,
that I don't
check you can check the episode where that happens. It's the chapter where that happens. I don't remember which one it is. I'll check.
Yeah. So I decided Van Dien obviously killed Adelius because of the thesis of Robert Jordan. And I have been struggling with whether or not Varen is a dark friend for a while because she's kind of shady, but I also fucking love her. But I'm like, maybe that's Robert Jordan going, it truly could be anybody, even the people you like, which fits into where this show is going also. It could be anyone, even the people you like.
Yeah, Ingtar's nice.
I like Ingtar. I like him a lot. He's a great guy. You know, Eamon Valda sucks, but like, you know, when he's like a normal guy, probably. So yeah, I think, and like Ishamael is a great babysitter, apparently.
Really good.
Really hands-on with the kids. So, you know, my thing is, I'm like, well, I think Van Dien did it because of all the reasons that I go into in the episode. And so Varen being Van Dien made me go, like a dog, because I was like, well, if they had different allegiances and they were combined into the same character, Twitter would be flipping a baby right now. You know what I mean? They'd be losing their absolute goddamn skulls. And no one was over the combo. And that was very measured for Twitter. So I was like, so they can't be functionally that fucking different in terms of allegiances and functionality in the story. Right? Or like Van Dien is kind of like a or Van Dien's kind of like a nothing character that Varen swallows. Right? So like people were kind of like, this seems to make sense. I mean, I didn't see a lot of people freaking out over this decision. Did you?
Not a lot. Couple.
Well, yeah, obviously there's going to be a couple. It's Twitter. But like, you know, I mean, there wasn't like a mass implosion. So I'm like, so they have to be the same
team.
Same team. So I was like, okay, well, if Van Dien is Adelius' killer and is a dark friend, and I'm right about that, then that means Varen has to be a dark friend. And if Varen is a good person, then Van Dien has to be a good person, which means I'm wrong. And I refuse to believe that that's true because then that means that Robert Jordan really whiffed, in my opinion, on an opportunity to prove his thesis. And kind of, yeah. So I refuse to believe that's true. And if it is true that I'm wrong, then mea culpa, Robert. But like, I kind of think you maybe whiffed on that. But yeah, so I think Varen might be a dark friend then.
You're going to have to, what's that word?
Raffo?
Raffo.
Well, I'm working on it. It's taking a minute. It's been 3 years. Anyway, and I wrote in all caps, oh, I don't want Adelius to die. I fucking love her. Oh, the fun reversal of Moraine on the whole, with Lan on the whole man wants to protect woman, so he pushes her away trope, which is setting Lan up for doing the exactly that to Nynaeve, which he does in the books. Yeah. And or reversing that bullshit. But like, you know, one of those.
Yeah, I'm really, what I will say...
by bullshit, I'm not insulting Robert. I'm just saying it annoys me that Lan did that.
What I will say about this plotline is I'm actually really enjoying it a lot.
Me too.
I really like the deepening of these characters that we're getting.
Yeah, and I like that it's feeling like these two people that we would normally feel like are invulnerable, right? Like we look at Gandalf and we're like, well, he's Gandalf. He can do anything, right? He's Gandalf. It's way scarier if they're more vulnerable than that. Yeah. It's way scarier if they're just people doing their best who happen to have really badass magical abilities. But at the end of the day, they're just lost as well.
Which, you know, from New Spring, we know that. They're kind of at very low points in parts of New Spring.
Yeah, and this is setting up for like Moraine's death to mean even more because we know how close they are and how much Lan cares about her.
Mm-hmm. I think also something that has been said is that this, I may have said this earlier, forgive me if I did, we took a pretty long break between recording these sections. Their plotline follows a lot of the same beats of a married couple that's lost a child. And sort of where they find themselves at the beginning of this series. I wrote like a whole dissertation about this that I will read later on, probably around episode 3. But to be brief, they have had one guiding purpose and light for 20 years, and it is now effectively they fucked it up. And she is no longer able to do the things that she thought she would be able to do the thing. And also, oh shit, we made it worse. So, should we even be doing this at all?
Right. And I mean, it's just present in her clothes, right? By the end of the episode, she finally has a mission again. But at the beginning, she doesn't. She's fucked up. And that's the fact that is possible for the leaders to do should terrify us. And it does.
I think also
it makes everything worse.
The more we discuss it, the more I firmly believe you are dead on the money with the inciting incident being the moon the Quendiar, the moon dial, him bringing the Quendiar in, because that and the poem as he says
launches Moraine.
That launches kind of everything else, right? And we're assuming, having seen 3 episodes, I'm not going to be specific. We're assuming we're going to see Lanfear, right? And it was a moon dial, so that's got to be Lanfear.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's heavily implied to be Lanfear.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's a poem. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and also...
We know which poem it is. It's Blood Calls Blood.
It's got to be Blood Calls Blood.
It's got to be.
And we'll talk more specifically when we can talk about episodes 2 and 3.
Okay. The scene when Egwene is in Swan's office and is cleaning.
I love this shit.
1, peep the box on Swan's desk.
Yeah, they keep showing the box.
They keep showing the box. And I'm like, okay, so that's got to be a call to when Swan gets deposed. That's got to be Tower Coup shit. They're alluding to it even now. And also, of course, Egwene looking longingly at the stole, setting that shit up right in season 2.
I like that.
All the scenes with Alana and her warders are going to make it even more violating when she takes Lan and Rand, and also will make Maxim's death even sadder. I'm positive it's Maxim that dies.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, first of all, Ivan in the books lives. Is the one who lives. So it is going to always be the other one. But also, is that this episode?
What I will say is I think
it is.
It is?
Yes, it is. Where they sword fight.
Okay, sorry,
yeah, and
my
he
bad.
says the thing about being always feeling like a third wheel. Yeah, that's this episode. And
I also don't think
that to me is also you're gonna die, buddy.
I don't think Rafe is gonna choose to have the Black Order die so his boyfriend can stay on the show.
Optically,
I just don't think he's going to do that. I would be disappointed.
That looks super shitty.
If that happens.
That's not going to happen.
I would be disappointed.
Yeah.
I love Taylor Nape. He's
my God, I love
wonderful
him.
work. He's funny. That's the other reason I think he's going to die. He's funny.
Oh,
and
the funny one always dies.
As we have discussed, humor is the best way to get you to like a character. If they're funny, genuinely funny, you are fond of them.
Yeah, the funny best friend
right?
always dies.
Which, in this sort of media.
Alana's earrings look like chains, and her
Yes,
necklace looks like a collar, and so do her braces look like cuffs, and her conflict with Nynaeve here and her looming over Nynaeve is all such foreshadowing for their issues surrounding Lan.
Yeah, I expect so. Do we want to talk about the scene with...
I'm going in order.
Okay, go ahead.
Unless you want to jump around.
No, please.
But this is just the last thought about this one. Also, we literally just got shown how they cleanse the tank.
Yeah.
And the fact that Nynaeve refuses to participate and has such a big moment in this scene is also...
pretty relevant, pretty cool, pretty clever. A lot of little things layered in there that I really enjoy. We talked about that in the first part. Never mind. Did we talk about how some people say it's out of character for Nynaeve to drink the water? We did talk about that.
Yeah, we did talk about that.
I disagree with that. Yeah.
Very much disagree. I'm speculating that they're switching the Elida backstory that Moraine told Rand about, which was in New Spring, about Elida, beating them, right? To try and get them to channel when they had difficulty channeling, which, by the way, is going to be super relevant when it comes to Nynaeve. But they're giving that to Leandrin, I think.
I think that's very possible.
Only because of what's going on, what we've seen established of
the dirty
Leandrin
rush?
and Moraine's relationship, the dirty rushing, and
You should
Leandrin's...
probably define dirty rushing.
Dirty rushing is, in sorority terms, before rush starts, you start trying to get the girls that you want to be interested in your sorority.
Rush being when you pick a sorority or try to get to court a sorority.
Yeah. So
Greek life is very confusing.
Yeah, it is. But so basically when, like rush at our school didn't happen until the winter time.
Right.
And you were not allowed as a freshman in the fall. I don't think you were allowed to go into sorority houses until winter or something like that. You like weren't allowed to go until a certain point because they would be considered dirty rushing. And you also weren't supposed to accept any gifts. Like when you went to like the pre-rush, like where you got to finally go into the houses and look at the
Pre-rush
stuff.
being like a party, sort of like a formal mixer.
It was more like a round robin. You like went to all the different places and just like talked to people.
Yeah, rush being when you court the sorority and the sorority courts you back.
Yeah, you weren't allowed to take like a napkin or like any food or anything from the sorority because it was considered gifts, which would also be dirty rushing.
Dirty rushing being starting that, I'm just using the term courtship because it feels appropriate. Starting the courtship process before you're allowed to.
Trying to influence the outcome of someone else's decision through like gifts or like approaching them too early, like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, which is exactly what Leandrin's dirty rushing. Nynaeve, she's not accepted yet. And she's like, here's why you should pick red. Here's why you should pick red. Here, or, you know, probably eventually going to turn into here's why you should pick black.
Yeah.
But you know.
Yeah, probably. But Moraine told Rand about that backstory at the end of season 1 with Leandrin. But I don't think that means no Elida. It just grounds that relationship in more complexity and raises the stakes for Leandrin's interest in Nynaeve. I think they're combining Leandrin and Alviarin, which works for me because then Elida is still there to be the puppet.
Yeah, and if you're going to pick another Black Aja character that needs presence, I think it's Alviarin over Galena.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I think Leandrin doesn't read as the head of the Red Aja to me. I know she's got her cabal, I think is the word that they used.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's got her cabal, but she, to me, she doesn't read like the head of the Ajas because everyone else feel the head of that Aja because everyone, I think then she would have seniority over the Mistress of Novices.
No?
Well, I don't know. She didn't read Galena to me. To me, it feels more Alviarin. Because Alviarin's the one that has the cabal that votes on eliminating, Swan.
Yeah.
So to me, that's just auguring that. I love in general that they're making Leandrin a more complex character than she is in the books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the only dark friend in the books with,
yeah.
The only... never mind.
I'm liking that all of them are more complex than they are in the books because it more closely gets at Robert Jordan's thesis about how complex the notions of good and evil are and that no one is too far gone.
Yeah.
Squeal Mazrim Ta'i mentioned in the White Tower.
That was fun.
Perrin has a beard, likely getting at his growing connection with the wild and his maturation. He doesn't need Fael to necessarily start that transformation. Also points at the passage of time.
Yes, because time has passed, and between seasons is a good time to do that.
That's like the time to do that.
It's the best time to do that.
Because otherwise it is a little jarring. It's hard to stick that landing. I like the combination of Elias and Huron because to me they're functionally the same.
I love Huron. He's funny. He's goofy. You know that episode of Always Sunny where they talk about Mac and Charlie write a movie, and the movie is about Dolph Lundgren playing a scientist who can smell crime?
Yes.
That's always kind of what I think about when I think about Huron.
That's very valid.
I like Huron. He's a nice guy. He's a cool character.
What if they got inspired by reading Robert Jordan?
It's not out of the question.
Stuff. That would be hilarious. Massima immediately says something religious upon finding the dead bodies.
Yeah.
I loved that detail. Ingtar also insists on burying them, which is straight out of the book.
Directly out of the book.
And also showcases his later traitorous deeds because he identifies with the baddies. Oh, I like the focus of Lan and his commitment to his oaths to Moraine, whether or not like he's obligated to stick with them. It shows how in it he is, like that he's not needing to like go do his own thing now that like the bond's gone, because his oaths are what really matters to him as a person.
Yeah.
And I was like, potentially the only thing that can compete with that would be a different kind of oath, like a marriage vow.
It's real. So something that I've noticed they haven't brought up as much on the show is the, suicidal drive to reclaim Malkir or die trying.
We have kind of talked about it a little bit. Here's my thing. I think that is going to come up when it's relevant. And
Sure.
I don't think it's been relevant yet. Like, I think that they have been, because there's a lot of like, well, why haven't they talked about this yet? And I'm not being mean about it. I'm just saying there's been a lot of, why haven't they talked about this yet? From myself included. Why haven't they talked about this yet? This is really important information. Is it cut? And then this season has shown that, like, no, weaves aren't cut. Like, the different kinds of
threads of the power.
the threads of the power aren't cut. It's just that it's a lot of information to get across to a new audience in a visual way.
Yeah.
It's a lot of exposition to get through.
And this season's already, I think, a lot more exposition heavy than season 1.
Right.
Just in this first episode.
Right. And I think we can get away with that because the audience is on board at this point.
Yeah.
Right. And we've still peppered it with a fuckload of action. I mean, that fade fight was amazing.
Oh, God, yeah.
And the fact that they shot that over 2 days is
I
also
can't get over that. That's
unbelievable.
fucking bananas.
Yeah, I can't get over it either. So to me, we haven't established Ogier settings either. We haven't established We haven't established Teliran Riyadh. We haven't established a ton of important stuff about this one.
The X-ray did, but like most people aren't all around the
Well,
X-ray.
that's going to be something that people are either going to know or they're not going to know. But I feel like, Teliran Riyadh, we're not going to bring that up until Lanfear's in the picture because that's not going to be important until Lanfear's here, right?
Yeah, probably.
That's the important time for that. I was surprised that they didn't bring up Malkir more toward the end of season 1.
Yeah.
But I think that they had a lot of other shit to do.
Is it possible also that Malkir will become more of a driving force when there is an iota of hope behind it? Because Lan has his line in season 1 to Moiraine, before you I had nothing to live for and nothing to die for. And I know that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way because Lan's thing kind of in the books is he's like, well, eventually I'm going to go die in the Blight.
Yeah, but I think in his mind, he could interpret that as nothing, right? Because he's like,
It's
there is no
hopeless.
city.
Yeah.
There are no people there. There's not, like, it is a hopeless cause that he will eventually try and do by himself.
Yeah.
But like,
I wonder if the...
But wait, can I...
Yeah, please, let you were done. Sorry.
But the thing that she gave him was something more real to die for, which is like, if he dies for saving the world versus useless quest into the Blight, right? That potentially is real. / if they defeat the Dark, Malkir might get saved
back,
anyway. So she might have actually given him something real to die for.
I wonder also if we're going to see down the line a situation where there becomes a more tangible goal for Malkir, and he is being drawn towards Malkir not because he has decided that it's time to, it's death time, but rather because, and by the way, again, we're in book, 9.5? He hasn't mentioned Malkir since, I don't know, book 4?
Well, I also think potentially his growing relationship and connection with Nynaeve is another really good reason to bring it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
As a thought, I think that's the most relevant time potentially to bring that up is like, oh, no, when I like rejected you after we had sex, well, not really rejected you, just was like, both of us have our causes and have things we need to do. Also, the additional thing is like, I don't want to make you frickin' widow.
Yeah. Which is most of what he says in the book.
Yeah. But I think that like them just like doing it and him going, well, I don't think we can really be more than this. Like, that's one thing. But like, it's at the point where like, they might love each other. And I think that just one season is a little too fast for that to be a conversation. That's when that really becomes relevant.
Sure.
And him kind of going like, yeah, but this still can't happen, even though like at this point we're in love. I mean,
Sure.
that's the time.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about Ingtar's? I know this is probably the next time we see them.
Wait.
Actually, do we want to talk about, because you...
Wait, but I also just want to say, hey, we're getting Sea Folk. Also,
Yes.
Game of Houses.
Yeah, they name dropped that.
Did they name drop Game of Houses? I just thought like Moraine was showcasing it.
She said Game of Houses, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're getting that.
I was going to say, do we want to talk about Ingtar, the funeral scene, now or later?
Later, because it's not in order yet.
Okay, do we want to talk about...
I have.
Well,
it all
I
in
think we
order.
passed this already. If we're talking about Perrin,
Oh, yeah.
Leandrin, Shiriam, the other Alana, the rest of them talking about Nynaeve. Remind the people where you are in your journey with Shiriam in the books right now.
Oh, she is definitely Black Aja, but I think she's a triple agent.
Right.
And to me, this makes sense because I think she is being set up as someone a little bit more complicated in her allegiances. To me, she's a lot more of a question mark in the series, in the TV series.
Sure.
But like, maybe I'm wrong about that. I just also think that's another one where I'm like, okay, but to me, all of the signs are there.
Do you have any thoughts on them choosing to have specifically Leandrin and Shiriam be the ones to discuss how we need to take good care of Nynaeve Almira? She's the best weapon we've had against the dark in a long time. And that being the thing that ultimately gets Shiriam to agree to let Leandrin...
Oh, yeah. Oh, I can't believe I even forgot to write any... Did I forget to write this all down? But yeah, let's definitely discuss it. What would you like to say about it?
I've said everything I want to say because I
you
want
just
this
wanted
to be...
make it noted?
I don't want to inform your opinion one way or the other on Shiriam because I know how much information you have, which has led you to the conclusion that... which I think is a reasonable conclusion. She is either Black Aja or she is working for the Black Aja.
Well, she's definitely working for
considering
the Black
she was
Aja.
shielded and beaten by almost definitely Halima.
Well, she's definitely the first step, which is Black Aja, for sure. Like, and so that conversation is loaded regardless of whether or not she is a triple agent. I really want to see her interact with either Swan or Moraine or Lyanna. Like what? Well, no, Lyanna doesn't know. So either Swan or Moraine. I want to see her interact. No, I just want to see her interact with Swan.
Sure.
Because I think to me, that will tell me a lot. Or nothing. But like, I feel like Rafe is doing a lot of really great layered foreshadowing in here.
Oh, I would agree with all of that.
And, I mean, what did they say? They said she's the best weapon that we have against the
Our
dark.
best
So
weapon against the dark
obviously,
in 1,000 years.
that
And
means
then they
we
share a look.
have to turn her to our side. And I mean, I think that there is dirty rushing of Nynaeve in part because it's like, well, she's one of the most powerful channelers ever. Obviously, we need her on our side. / we need all of them potentially on our side because Rand will buckle like a tissue paper if that's the case.
The boy loves his friends.
/ there was some leaked script a while ago that said that Ashamael was Luce Theron's best friend.
Yeah, that was a Gawain audition script.
Yeah, I'm thinking that they're going with all of the Forsaken have some kind of friendship, love affair, something connection to Luce Theron.
Well, it's true in the books.
It is true in the books, and I think they're going deeper with that, and I think it's going to have like bigger implications for Rand's friends, especially people like, you know, especially when they're getting at the like, who is a monster? And like, could Perrin, Matt, Nynaeve, Egwene make decisions that end up being in favor of the dark? I mean, Ashamael's pretty fucking convincing.
He's doing a good job this turn.
And the White Cloaks are real bad. And like, so like, who is good in this situation? Who's actually good? Who's actually bad? It's all very hot nuanced.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, I mean, if Rand's past is like, I made all the wrong decisions when it came to my friends and loved ones, except for Ilyena. And that resulted in me and me killing Ilyena. I mean, Well, and not to mention that I was like, Latrapasai feels like a real stand-in for Egwene in that one scene, right?
I think they are definitely carrying the Latrapasai as Egwene stuff.
I think they're playing around a fuckload with like Luz Theron's past and how it equates to Rand's future/present.
I think Latrapasai, being a character who's really only mentioned in the strike at Shai Ghul, being in episode 8, we talked about this last season some, but I absolutely do think they're going to pull through that through line of Egwene Latrapasai.
I think it's all but certain to me that they're like expanding upon this idea of like, these were once Luz Theron's friends and like they fucked him over.
Big time.
So like, can we trust Rand's judgment and friends? Will these people actually get tempted by the dark? Because like, when we watch something like Harry Potter, #TransLivesMatter, I mean, we're like never concerned that Hermione or Ron are going to turn on Harry.
No.
But if we're concerned...
It's not the one time in book 7.
Well,
for about 3 seconds with the Horcrux.
Well, and that was kind of freaking scary. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Like, you're like, oh my God, what happened to Ron? But we're already playing around with like, is Matt a good guy?
How do you feel about that, by the way? Sorry, continue.
I do. I mean, obviously, Matt is a good guy. We know this. But like, I like the idea of playing with, I mean, if we're really blurring the boundaries and lines of like good guy versus bad guy, which again, I really do think goes back to Robert Jordan's initial thesis.
Oh, yeah.
A lot. I think it's just expanding upon it and adding to it. I think that playing with like, does Matt have the potential to be a bad guy? Does Perrin have the potential to be a bad guy? Does Nynaeve, with being like pals with Leandrin for a little while, have the potential to be a bad guy?
And angry at the world.
Yeah. I mean, Leandrin's arguments were compelling.
Yep.
Right? She's like, okay, I know you're Miss Healer Girl and want to save the world. Well, have you heard about our Lord and Savior?
Mr. Heelman?
Who's going to break the wheel? And make everything better because like, and make it so that little girls don't suffer anymore. Which, by the way, who hurt Leandrin?
Oh, yeah.
Truly.
Somebody hurt Leandrin.
Someone who fucked with Leandrin.
So
she's a real specific thing about like little girls getting hurt by men. Yes,
she does. Let's go back real quick to Matt because I want to touch on something. I know he's barely in this episode. I know. We'll talk about Matt when we get there. But
that's all on purpose.
Yeah, I think Matt specifically, they almost kind of fell into a complementary growth thing for him with Barney Harris leaving the show, which is Matt starts the season. Obviously, he's come from a place of enormous hurt, etc., etc. He's doing good things, and he kind of doesn't really want to, but he continues to do good things for the entire season. And then episode 6 happens and he bails because of, things outside of the control of the things outside of everybody's control. And now we get to see him recover from that because now he has done something wrong. He has done a bad thing. And now he has that backing his actions as he makes efforts not to do bad things again.
Yeah.
Which I think is almost more compelling than a guy who doesn't want to do the right thing but always does, is a guy who doesn't want to do the right thing, who doesn't always want to do the right thing, but he knows what will happen if he doesn't.
Yeah.
Because he's been there, because he's experienced it.
Yeah. There's a lot.
I'm just excited to see what they do. Anyway, I've taken you far afield from your notes.
Well, and I had a thought about that too, and I'm trying to think. People complaining about Rand and Matt not being in the episode. It's for a large portion of it. It's because the plot question of the episode was, where is everybody? And the two most important people to find, and the two people we're going to have the most questions about, are Rand and Matt.
Yeah.
I mean, Rand is essential to find. So if the question is like, where are we? Where is everybody? We can't have Rand in a large portion of the episode because then we answered the question too soon.
Yeah.
Like, Rand's location is the most compelling thing in the entire episode. And I'm not laughing at you. I'm just speaking. But it is the climactic thing about this episode. And so to reveal him too soon would be to make the episode not interesting.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Cool. Okay. Oh, so Nynaeve kind of is like dealing with her block through playing swords with the warders, right? With which Leandrin takes issue with later. But part of that is kind of hinting at the key to breaking her block being through a warder, specifically Lan. Also, let's clock how much Lan being in danger helps her channel being threatened in some way.
It does. Can I also say that I love what they're doing with the block? I love what they're doing with the block.
I love what they're doing with the block.
I think it's kind of implied that it's been there from the beginning, the first time she channels, because she's not hearing the wind anymore. But I think, we said this last season, I think specifically tying this explicitly mentally connecting it to Amalisa, again, as we said, using their power to do these things and letting that be what keeps Nynaeve from accessing her own abilities is such a great expansion on like what Jordan already put in there. Because her, I think it's very much the same thing as in the books, is that her power, her block is because she's afraid of what she can do.
Well, one of my big issues that I've taken with Robert Jordan is that I don't think he explores women's trauma enough when his like whole thing is exploring like kind of the trauma of what war does to people.
Yeah.
The women endure traumatic events in those books. And this is with all the love and respect, but I think that he was a little bit limited in how he explored some of that trauma.
Sure.
Right. And I think we've talked extensively about this on the podcast, right? That I wish that he had delved more into how these events affected the women in it, because I felt like the men got a lot of space to explore what was happening to them and a lot of grace in those moments too, that I don't necessarily think happened for the women at the same in the same way. I don't think the same energy was given to like Egwene when she gets kidnapped by the Shan-Chan.
She's there for about 2 months.
Yeah, that's fucking traumatic.
Yeah.
And then she like thinks about for a minute that she won't be chained again, but at this point it doesn't.
It's obliquely mentioned and it affects her as a character building device, but the trauma's not brought up very often.
Whereas every woman that's ever died near Rand is brought up all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, okay, it's feeling like the trauma that women experience is not given equal weight. It just isn't. And I'm sure people have some arguments about it, but like, I just don't feel that it is. And I am enjoying that it feels like Rafe is letting the story also go there.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And exploring like not just war trauma, but trauma as a whole, and like how that can make you do wonderful things, right? Sometimes with that, like you can create better worlds for yourself out of trauma, not through trauma, but like you can take a terrible experience and make light for yourself. You can do that. Or sometimes trauma can make people do awful things. Can have people traumatize others.
Mm-hmm.
Very real, very valid. Makes the whole good and evil question really big. It's a big, complicated thing. In order to have longevity in a series, we kind of have to tackle big, complicated things. Also Nynaeve having to show deference to Alana due to her warders when Lan might become one is a fucking lot. Because Maxim goes, that's Alana Sedai to you.
Yeah. I like the relationship they're exploring with Nynaeve and the warders. I think she doesn't like Aes Sedai. It's in the books. She really fucking doesn't like Aes Sedai, especially Moiraine. But she really doesn't like Aes Sedai. And I appreciate that they've given her the warders as people to attempt to commune with. Nynaeve thumping stick Almira, it stands to reason, would get along with the guys who like to hit things.
Well, not to mention they're her only connection to Lan.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Lan, they are Lan's friends. Lan introduced her to them. Lan played with them with the warders in the training yard, right? Like, so she is connected to him in doing this.
Yeah,
and that matters. And I think also it's smart from a storytelling perspective, because like Nynaeve cannot confide in Egwene like Egwene confides in her, because Egwene to Nynaeve is not a peer. Nynaeve is Egwene's mentor. Nynaeve is Egwene's protector. So Nynaeve cannot confide in Egwene like Egwene can confide in her. A teacher cannot confide in a student like a student can confide in a teacher. A parent cannot confide in a child like a child can confide in a parent. It is not that kind of equal relationship.
And whether or not, really quick, sorry, whether or not that is actually the state of Egwene and Nynaeve's relationship, it is certainly how Nynaeve perceives it.
Right. That's the thing, is Nynaeve perceives it that way. And that matters to Nynaeve when it comes to who Nynaeve is going to approach. And Nynaeve is never going to approach, I mean, she kind of starts to with Liandrin, but Nynaeve is never really going to approach the other Aes Sedai about her problems, right? Because she doesn't want to admit she needs help from them, right? Because then she will have to deal with her trauma, right? She'll have to address her like inabilities. And Nynaeve is not someone who can accept that she is not good at something, right? But she can look at these warders as a peer because they are, in her mind, equivalent, well, not equivalent to, but the next best thing to Lan.
Yeah.
So all of that to me, like, so that from a storytelling perspective, that one episode where everyone was like, why are we spending so much time with the warders? It's so that Nynaeve has an outlet so that we can get an insight into Nynaeve's internal life, which is vital on a TV show. We need to be able, Nynaeve is not a character that will open up to just anyone.
No.
If like Elaine just showed up and Nynaeve started spilling her guts, that would not be Nynaeve.
No.
So we had to give her early on a vehicle so that when she's in the White Tower, she has someone to confide in.
Especially in absence of inner monologue, and
because we don't get that
from a book series that is absolutely dripping in rich internal monologue. We need to figure out how are we going to show it, how are we going to get into it,
how do we externalize the internal.
It's fucking hard, which is also why we talk about how Perrin is like the hardest goddamn character to write for screen,
which is why we had to kill Matt to get him to open up and actually be vulnerable and real.
We say had to, we've talked about
it, because we know Matt is vulnerable and real in his head, but outside he's like a swaggering guy, right? So in order to give us access to that character's internal complexity, we had to give him a rough past so that we understood him.
Yeah, and we can discuss if there are other ways they might have done it, but that was the intention behind all of these choices, is our interpretation.
And you don't have to like how they did it. It's just, that's the explanation.
Yeah.
So the implications of Nynaeve preferring practical weapons when thinking about her
Fighting
fight with Meganian, which I think we will get.
It's an iconic moment.
Yeah. I do also think we're still getting the quarterstaff fight. Like, I still think we're getting, I think the contexts might be different, right? Like we've seen, but there's no, like, they want to give us the iconic moments.
Yeah. Something that, to be very vague, what I'm liking about season 2 is it really does feel like every episode I'm getting a scene or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 that is directly from The Great Hunt or The Dragon Reborn, but it's with a different person or it's in a different place, but the dialogue is the same and the core of it is still there, but it's presented slightly differently, and it is always so surprising and refreshing when I see that. It is always, I go, oh shit, it's this thing, as opposed to sitting there going, all right, now we're going to go do this. Yeah, I remember when I read that, it was great. And there's nothing wrong, by the way, with adapting something like that. It's just, it's very different. And this approach of sort of, okay, here are the moments, here are the things that people love from book 2. How are we going to get these items to the screen in a way that's fun, and in a way that thematically is consistent with the rest of everything, and in a way that works with where our characters were at the end of season 1, because our characters were admittedly in extraordinarily different places.
Yeah.
Right? Book 1, frankly, ends as though it could be a standalone.
Right.
It could end there. There is not an extraordinarily strong hook apart from the dragon is reborn, which you probably already figured that out.
Yeah.
So how do we take these chess pieces that are not in our expected configuration, move them about such that we find ourselves in positions we recognize?
Yeah. Oh, in this scene with Liandrin and Nynaeve.
Yes.
By the way, when she says to Nynaeve, there's more than one way to channel.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously, that's partially, I think, about you know, you can be angry. You don't have to picture a fucking flower or whatever. But I was also like, because I just have a hard time imagining that, like, you know, Maggedian gets up there and goes, all right, picture a rosebud. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you still have to surrender, but yeah.
But yeah, it's like there's more than maybe you surrender to your anger, right? Whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I also thought that was theoretically a hint at the true power.
Oh, maybe. It would be interesting if the rank and file Black Aja knew about that. Because it's a pretty closely guarded secret in the books that the Forsaken know about. It's possible.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily think potentially that Leandra knew about it.
Oh, I see.
I think
okay.
that like she basically is like the Aes Sedai don't understand that there's more than one way to channel.
Sure.
Could also be not a hint that Leandra knows about the true power, but also a nod to the true power.
Sure.
We'll get to the funeral scene, which I think you wanted to talk about.
Yes, I did want to talk about this because
tell me what you thought.
I've seen varying reactions online between book readers who argue they're pushing way too hard, Ingtar is way too obvious, and then new readers not twigging on Ingtar at all, and also new readers going, what a sweet man, and also some new readers going, interesting, I wonder why he's saying that, I'm suspicious. Mm-hmm. I really kind of appreciate, because of that, how effective this choice was.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's very, you know, it can certainly be read as there are good people on both sides, but that's really not how I see it. I think he's saying essentially, he's not trying to justify when he talks about Padden Fane's actions. He's not saying he had a good reason, right?
Yeah.
He's telling Perrin, this guy almost certainly had some reason for doing this. And I'm not saying you have to agree with it or respect it, but remember that he came to this process he came to this point by way of a process. And I think if we tie that back to the cold open to the season, which I really think is the choice to use the Dark Friend social in this way as a prequel, it kind of really marries quite well with one of Robert Jordan's, you know, core themes, which has to do with how you're not too far gone, etc. What is its balance, its grayness, etc. And I think it means we're going to be exploring much more of sort of why have the friends of the dark become friends of the dark? Yeah. In a way that perhaps by dint of intent or by dint of the time they were released or by dint of something else, I don't know, the books tend perhaps to go a little bit more towards, well, they were greedy, so therefore now they are dark friends.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of us know people who have made bad decisions or done bad things or hurt us where...
By the way, I'm not saying the books don't treat dark friends grayly. They absolutely do. Yeah. I'm just saying a lot of them are very cut and dry.
I mean, I think a lot of us know people who have done bad things and bad things to us where you go, okay, it doesn't excuse what they did, but there are explanations for why they behaved a certain way, right? Maybe they thought they were doing the right thing based on flawed principles. Maybe it is self-preservation. And that doesn't excuse them doing horrible things. It's just like, most of the time people don't do bad stuff for no reason. Yeah. There's usually kind of a trail. And I think in deepening the backstories of some of these dark friends a little bit, like you said, it gets at Robert Jordan's thesis. But I think the other thing that it does is it makes them more fleshed out and complicated, which makes us more invested in them and their journey and their arc. But it also, it grounds the story in something very real, which I think serves, again, what Robert Jordan was doing. But the other thing that I think is that it makes the characters actually more threatening to me.
Absolutely,
as dark friends, because they have motivation.
Yeah.
And so, while Leandrin might seem invested in Nynaeve, perhaps there are additional things that are fueling her that she would put before Nynaeve. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And of course we can talk more about that in episode 2.
But I liked that in this scene, he is showing compassion for people even though they maybe don't deserve it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a way to do that in a hot, nuanced way where you are still protecting yourself, but holding space for the fact that, yeah, you did a shitty thing. We will acknowledge that shitty thing. It doesn't excuse or justify your shitty thing, but we'll also hold space for the fact that maybe you are also suffering in a different way.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting as a concept. I think it's something that's very hard to do. Maybe after a lot of therapy, in my case, I've been starting to be able to do that, but
it's hard.
Yeah, it's hard. And, obviously there's some selfish motivation behind him being like, have a heart for the dark friends, right? But I also think that it gets at potentially, and this also happens in the books, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. He insists they bury them.
Yeah. So, it shows that Ingtar is a little bit about self-preservation rather than principle.
Yeah.
He also clearly feels some humanity for the Shienauern that betrayed them, because obviously. And I think this question, if I know anything about framing, which I hope I do, or bookending something in terms of a plot. So he says to Perrin, have you thought about asking Pat, and I'm going to bastardize this quote, but perhaps Paddon Fane again had a reason for doing what he did. You may not like the answer, but you may find it worth asking the question.
Yeah.
I feel like when Ingtar does sacrifice himself, and I think he will, because I think that's where this is going, Perrin is going to ask him that question.
I think so.
Yeah,
I certainly think so.
That's what's coming, and we're all going to go, oh my God, the bookend. We love a bookend.
I think, and I've seen discussion about this on Twitter. Somebody, I don't remember who, put this very well. They said, I think that, as you say, Ingtar's sacrifice revelation moment is going to be to Perrin, not to Rand. And in light of Perrin's journey dealing with what he considers to be a darkness within himself, dealing with the urge to do what he thinks to be dark things, violence, to kill, to be peaceful, to stand by, to not stand by. I do agree with what I've seen online that has a lot of echo with Perrin's later plotline. That it works with Rand too. It affects Rand, but I think it's more directly impactful on Perrin's arc down the line.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I also feel like back me up here, I clocked Ingtar pretty fast in the books.
You clocked Ingtar almost immediately.
Yeah. But I was still uber invested in seeing if I was right about that.
Yeah.
And that in itself is very exciting. So I think regardless of whether or not people latch on to Ingtar, either being like, that's totally a dark friend, or that's totally not a dark friend, what a sweetheart, or what have you. I think that the fact that opinions are forming about this character and that people are invested in seeing where that character goes, whether they think he's bad or not, is kind of the goal, ultimately.
I agree with that.
Like, usually you're not going to get everything by everyone. There's always someone who's like, oh, yeah, I thought that's where that was going.
Yeah.
Right? Especially if you're someone who pays attention to storytelling patterns, it's kind of rare that I get fully surprised by something, I would say.
It happens, but I think it's the kind of thing where the more homes you build, the more you notice how other people's homes are built.
Right. Yeah.
The more you construct something, the more you look around and the more you can look around and say, oh, I see you did this here, and that was to support this sort of roof, and you put these cabinets in for this reason because it complements this. And again, it's not to say that we're in any way omnipotent or, it just means that this is a thing that we have examined and studied, and therefore we can sometimes pick up on patterns.
Yeah, and when you already know where Ingtar's character goes, of course you're going to think it's obvious.
Yeah.
Because you know the result.
I think that's the biggest thing that I've had to... A couple things that I'm having to divorce myself from, which I'm very happy and I don't mind doing. I'm happy to divorce myself from. One of them is sort of remembering I already know the broad strokes of everything that's going to happen. Right? So... And Bree, our good friend who will be joining us for various full spoiler sections, probably not this episode. I don't have anything to really discuss with her this episode. But something she said is, from a psychological perspective, if you're watching the show expecting to see X, Y, or Z thing, If you're watching the show because you're a fan of Matt, if you're watching the show because you love Ingtar, if you're watching the show because you really want to see, Roydian, you are going to selectively, and this isn't a criticism, this is how brains work, and we do this too, everybody does this, you're going to selectively filter out things that don't matter to what you are watching it for, right?
Okay.
In the same way that your memory, you filter out things that are repetitive, or that the reason why the past always seems rosier is because your brain highlights the things that you liked. When you watch an adaptation of a story that you know, and you have a particular lens on that story, and certain things are more important to you than others, your brain is going to highlight the things that matter and discard the things that don't.
Right. So
because of that, all of us watching The Wheel of Time are going to have different things that we think, this matters because this matters because that, this doesn't matter, I don't understand why they're doing this because it doesn't set up X, Y, and Z thing that I care about. Right. And oftentimes, it'll be, it may be setting something else up, but that's a plot line that either your brain has decided isn't really important, or that you forgot about, or that is new for the books and it's derived for the show and it's derived from something else. And so something that I've really had to do hard is try to separate my viewing of this show from doing what we do on the podcast, because a lot of what we do is discuss, this is working for me because it ties into this thing from the book. And I like doing that. And I think that that's a good thing to do. But when I'm watching the show, I also am trying really hard to judge it as sort of, what story is this telling, and how does that relate thematically? How does that relate more broadly? How can this new thing add to what I like? How can this thing that is missing take away from it?
Right.
This is a very long-winded way to describe something, but I mean, I don't know how I got on this topic, but that's something that I've really been focusing on as we watch these new things. By the way, we're probably way the hell overdue for ads, so let's just throw a quick ad break in here. Welcome back. I'm done rambling.
Okay. Moving on from the funeral scene, when we were at, if I may.
Please. I hope you do.
But yes, I think that's a really good point. I think, just to summarize, the perfect adaptation for me is going to be very different than the perfect adaptation for Gus.
Yeah.
But I'm my kind of like weird little trick is I'm always like, watch it, feel your feelings, and then watch it again.
Yeah.
As if you're seeing just the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I have found that has really cemented my personal love for the show. It doesn't have to cement yours, but I do think it's helpful to just be like, okay, now that I know what is going on, let me just watch it for the enjoyment of it. And see if I do enjoy it, because I'm having a freaking blast. But during the Matt scene where he pulls the armoire down to pull a Shawshank, at first both I and a friend thought he was going to try hanging himself.
I didn't get that at all.
Okay, fair. But I just thought that was kind of interesting, considering things that happened to Matt in the books. Yes, absolutely. I didn't get that at all. Again, we're talking about how we perceive things differently, but I get what you're saying. I just thought that was kind of interesting. Sure, yeah. Oh, Leandrin lies while reading him the letter. Probably, yeah. I can see how one could construct an argument that 5 mentions are not a single mention, but I'm going to go ahead and call this one a lie, because a lot of new readers I saw online said, I thought I said I couldn't lie when that happened. Which so I kind of delighted in. Yeah, I do think that was deliberate. Yeah, I do think it was kind of like, for those of you paying attention, which it slipped by me at first. Mm-hmm. When we first watched it, it slipped by me that she was lying. Mm-hmm. And then I went back and I went, oh my God. And someone else pointed it out to me. A friend of mine pointed it out to me. She was like, oh my God, she lied. And I went, oh my God, she did. They're setting these clues up very subtly. And that's kind of all I have. For spoilers? Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about? Yeah. I want to talk about the Fade fight. I want to talk about the end. I want to talk about the Fade fight. I want to talk about... For spoilers? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I want to talk about Lan and Warren's relationship a little bit. I already touched on this earlier, but I think there's something I want to address, which is that I've seen a lot of people on Twitter both say, and by the way, the point of this podcast is not rebut Twitter. It's just, I know that this is something, when we say we saw X on Twitter, it's not, and here's why you're wrong. That's not the intention. It is sort of, here is our perspective on this thing that we know people are talking about.
And here's why you're wrong.
No. People arguing on Twitter both that it is unrealistic that Lan lost to two Fades.
Okay.
And also, it is massively people saying both the Fades seemed way, way stronger and Lan has been nerfed versus how he is in the books.
Okay.
And I've also seen people say it is unrealistic that Lan wasn't made mincemeat of in 5 minutes.
Okay.
By two Fades. And there's a wonderful Twitter thread by at AmyKCT on Twitter. And I did speak with Amy, got Amy's permission to talk about this because I think this is a fantastic thread. I'm just going to read all of it that I can. Given Fadegate, aka whether Lan should have been able to do better than he did against all those Fades, I thought it would be worth doing a thread of Fade scenes from the books. Chapter 39, Dragon Reborn. 7 Aiel are about to fight 3 Fades. Before the fight can begin, the Wonder Girls kill the Fades. Rourke says he is glad of it, as the Aiel could have killed the Fades, but that the Fades would have killed at least 2 or 3 more of them. 5 Aiel survive this. Chapter 18, Eye of the World. Quote, Then Lan was on the Myrddraal. Warden's blade met black steel with a clang like a great bell. Those two fought in a great circle, black horses marching step for step, swords matching stroke for stroke. End quote. Lan did kill the Fade, but it took time, and they were evenly matched.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 25, Great Hunt. Tom says that his leg was injured by the Fade in Whitebridge, but he survived because the Fade ran off after Matt and Rand at the first opportunity. He has a limp that cannot be healed.
Oh, that's another thing.
Due to the
Tom
encounter.
killing that Fade is going to make him seem way more badass.
He doesn't kill it.
Oh, I forgot he doesn't. Oh,
No,
you just said that he doesn't kill it. But Tom, at least holding his own against the
It's
Fade.
big, yeah.
It's like, because I maintain he's not just an average singer and storyteller. So,
Well, you know he's not.
well, I know he's
Yeah.
not, but I think that the reader or the watchers will start to feel that way too when he shows up.
Chapter 10, Shadow Rising. Quote, For a time it was all Rand could do to keep its blade from his own unarmored flesh. Rand fought as coldly as he ever had, and as desperately. The Fade knew the use of a sword. Then an instant came when he could strike a blow squarely at the sword itself. So, very much evenly
That makes me
matched.
curious. Are they made knowing how to sword fight, or is there a little adorable
It's a good question.
Fade
I assume
training?
so. Chapter 22, Fires of Heaven. The Trolloc went down with a ruined throat, and Matt found himself facing a Myrddraal, just as it finished killing 2 Aiel who had come at it together.
2 of them.
End quote. He talks about the need to overwhelm them and not being able to spare a glance for the battle around them. Chapter 8, Eye of the World. Quote, Myrddraal see like eagles, in darkness or in light, but they have no eyes. I can think of few things more dangerous than facing a Myrddraal. Moiraine Sedai and I both tried to kill the one that was here last night, and we failed every time. End quote.
Can I also say, we saw Lan and Moiraine and Lan's sword fighting abilities very clearly from the pilot.
Yes.
Right? The pilot, they worked hand in hand. They were, fluid. They were basically in this dance that connected one another's movements. I think that also Lan is purposefully weaker here due to the bond between him and Moiraine not existing.
That's possible, but I think we don't know enough about the metaphysics to say for sure, but I think that's very possible.
But I think whether or not he's physically weaker or whatever, metaphysics aside.
Oh yeah, his head's not in the right place.
Yeah, there's a mental aspect to it that I feel is prevalent. Like prior, when he's going into battle, he has Moiraine to back him up. Also, not to mention, she's wounded and he doesn't know how badly, and he's trying to keep them away from her.
Yeah.
Whereas in the past, he was trying to keep them away from her, but she was fully capable.
Yeah.
of taking care of herself also. It's a very different kind of fight because they could easily, while he's distracted with one, show up in front of her and stab her. Why not?
Yeah.
Clearly she's the target.
Chapter 6, Great Hunt. Rand turns a corner and finds 6 dead Shinarans. A 7th man dies at the hand of a Myrddraal as Rand watches. The Fade moves with viperous grace.
And that's Shinarans. They're really tough.
It starts toward Rand next. Rand's hands shake as he raises his sword. Suddenly the Fade stops smiling. And finally, Chapter 5, The Dragon Reborn. A pack of 7 wolves bring down a Fade at the cost of all but one of their lives. So I think my personal opinion is this scene is pretty well balanced, considering that Lan decapitates one Fade. I'm okay with it being down after it's decapitated, and that one of them took a massive stab through the neck and then got back up, as far as I can tell. I think Lan being ultimately felled by 1.5 Fades makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I think also
with no Moraine and no Bond and him trying to protect a injured woman.
Yeah.
I think, that makes sense to me.
It doesn't have to make sense 1-to-1 from the books. Fades can be more or less powerful. These Fades might be holding back. There's a lot of things we can talk about here. I just wanted to bring that up in the context of discussion of, is this unrealistic with what we know about Fades, either from the show or from the books? I think it is easy for us to get lost in, without giving too much away, later books where people are kind of nuking Fades on sight.
Yeah, but here's the thing about that. We have to give them room to grow.
Yeah, it's power creep.
Yeah,
right?
It's not... Right now, I mean, season 1 Trollocs were the real big bads, difficult to kill. I mean, obviously there was like 1 or 2 Fades, but we never saw them really engage in battle that I remember.
Not really.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there were 3 at the end there in the throne room.
Yeah, but we didn't get to see their skill.
Yeah. Oh, did you want to talk at all about the stab? You had some frustration with that?
I was a little bit surprised that they didn't mention how anything about them having been stabbed. But at the same time, when I'm thinking about the explanations of things, it is months later.
Mm-hmm.
So those stab wounds might not be relevant. They might not know. I mean, because I think only Loyal was shown to be stabbed by Padan Fane with the dagger. I think everyone else, it looked like, got taken down by Fades.
Yes.
Which made me kind of go, okay, maybe they're playing with the metaphysics of the dagger a little bit and saying that Ogier might not be as susceptible, what kills a human might not kill an elephant,
sure,
kind of thing. I was a little surprised that they didn't provide an explanation, but that doesn't necessarily mean they won't once they understand the metaphysics of the dagger with like Turok's death.
Yeah, I will also... Turok doesn't get stabbed by the dagger.
Yeah, he does.
No, Rand kills him with a sword. Turok?
I thought at that battle, Matt stabbed somebody with the dagger.
Matt doesn't have the... No.
Yeah, and someone melts.
Fane...
I swear to God.
In Great Hunt?
I swear to God.
No. Rand kills Turok in a sword fight in the book.
I thought that Matt slashed him, defending Rand.
He slashes a Sojin or a Dakoval with it. Doesn't slash Turok.
Okay,
no,
but he does slash somebody.
Somebody like withers and dies from it. Yeah, I think you're right. I'm remembering now, but it's not Turok. Rand kills Turok with a sword, which is how he kind of formally becomes a blade master.
But I think that's probably the opportunity, if they're going to explain it at all, which maybe they won't. But I have a hard time believing that they won't explain it, just because it is such a big thing. But if Matt... But they've never seen a human be affected by the dagger.
It is a big thing in the books. It is possible that the dagger in the show is evil to hold, less evil to stab.
And that's possible that they're altering that too.
Yeah.
Maybe they're like, I want to spend my special effects budget on something else.
Could be. I don't know. We'll wait and see, I guess.
Which might be fair considering how many effects there are. And how expensive they are to do.
There are a lot of
them.
They're
so expensive.
Yeah.
So
that is all I have. I think this episode did a great job of... I mean, again, our friend Bree described it as 11,000 inciting incidents, and it still had fight scenes.
Yeah.
And
it was great.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it, and I'm excited to discuss the rest of the episodes we have seen.
Yeah, I think this is a strong start to the season, for sure. I feel really good about this launch point.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone.
Take it away, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Please, no, go.
This has been Wheel Takes. If you want to keep in touch with us, tell us how stupid and wrong we are. Just kidding. Please don't do that. Well, do it in a nice way if you must. Our social media and email are below. In addition to that, if you want to support us further, you can either leave us a rating or a review. It always makes our day and helps spread the word about the podcast. Or you can become one of our patrons on Patreon. The details for that are below.
Yeah.
Anything else, Gus?
Have I been doing the anything else, Gus, for these? That doesn't
I have
feel right.
no idea.
It's been a long time since we've done these. It was a bit of a wait.
Thank you so much, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Thank you again for listening. This was Wheel Takes with Ali and Gus. Music by Alexander Nakarada.